The south is going to feel very warm, if not hot. More outbreaks of rain to come across northern parts through tomorrow evening. Further south across central and southern areas, a dry picture to end the day. More fine weather to come through the end of the week across southern areas, with temperatures peaking in the mid-30s perhaps on Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We're celebrating a golden summer with a terrific two-part Great British giveaway. First, you could win a sensational £60,000 in tax-free cash. And that's not all, as you'll also win our most precious prize to date, a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think GB News is completely unique in the way that we interact with our viewers.
Our audience aren't afraid to have their say. They want their voices heard now, and they've got a channel where that can happen.
I find more and more as I'm wandering around, people come up to me and they say, we saw you on television. I say, oh yes, on what? On GB News.
Hello, are you the famous Sue? The whole crew hid me here now. We came to celebrate.
It's our job to be the eyes and ears of the viewers.
They are part of the GB News family, and I'm pleased to say it's a very large family.
And if people go to the time and trouble of listening and watching, then we've got to do a good job for them.
Well, I'm here right in the epicentre of the protest.
Here we go again. You just tuned in. Where have you been?
It is raucous here tonight.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Good afternoon, it's 3 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News with me, Christopher Hope, broadcasting here until 6 p.m. today. Here's what's coming up on today's show.
We've got a brand new Prime Minister, but the same old problems look set to sink Labour on the beaches of Dover as nearly 1,000 migrants cross the Channel under Andy Burnham's watch, putting pressure on him to break his silence on how he might stop the boat crossings. The Prime Minister has suggested that homeowners in the south of England should pay higher property taxes for fairness. But will Labour's Robin Hood plot to rob the south to pay for the north resurrect the age-old north-south divide? Is Labour fanning the flames of a new class war?
I want to rule it out. Yeah, there's no early general election. I don't think people want it, you know.
Andy Burnham has ruled down early general election on a BBC interview despite recent speculation in Westminster that he may seek a fresh mandate to let his leadership do more than the mandate from 2024 suggests. But what does early mean? And with the Burnham bounce putting Labour ahead of reform in his first week of power, might the pressure become too much not to go to the country? A bombshell new report has found diversity programmes are costing police forces tens of millions of pounds a year, and they're contributing to two-tier justice. After an inquiry found that Nottingham triple killer Valdo Calacane was not sanctioned because he was black, I'll be joined by Dr. Sanjoy Kumar, whose daughter was murdered by the paranoid schizophrenic. And you're in luck, get it? If you're looking to stay in the UK and have an incontinent child. An Albanian drug dealer has avoided deportation after an asylum judge said it would be unduly harsh to separate him from his daughter as she wets the bed. Is this more proof that the lunatics really are running our asylum system? Send your views and post your comments by going to gbnews.com/yoursay or scan the QR code on the right of your screens right now. But now it's time for your news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Chris, thank you and good afternoon. Your headlines at 3:02. 3 women have been taken to hospital. 2 are severely injured after a knife attack in Paris. It's reported the suspect attacked the woman in the street with 2 kitchen knives. French authorities say the man has been detained by off-duty police officers. The terror suspect, who is accused of driving a van into a crowd of people at a Pride event in Berlin, has been shot and killed by police. 1 woman was killed in the initial attack and 29 others injured. Officers say 21-year-old Abdul Balu was known to authorities and had Islamist links. Police found him after an hours-long manhunt. It's understood they opened fire after he ran at officers with a weapon. The German Interior Minister has raised the country's terror threat level, warning other copycat attacks couldn't be ruled out. 3 people have been killed and 4 others injured, including a 2-year-old child, after a shooting in the US city of Seattle. The city's mayor says the suspect, who opened fire at a food festival, has been taken into custody. Police are urging people to avoid the area. Tourists are being warned to stay away from southwest France, where severe wildfires are just 7 miles from Bordeaux. Officials are considering a total evacuation of the city. The number of people who've been forced to flee their homes across France and Spain has now risen to 320,000. Travel journalist Simon Calder has shared some advice to those booked to visit the affected areas.
Clearly, this is a desperate situation for the communities there and people putting their lives on their line to fight the fires and so on. But as you say, there are many people booked to travel to this beautiful area of France who are now thinking, what do I do? British Airways is saying if you're booked in or out of Bordeaux, you can change your flight. But otherwise, if you fixed up everything on your own, it's kind of a matter of talking to each of the people involved and hoping that you can get things moved. But there's no automatic entitlement, and your travel insurance won't necessarily be of any help.
Meanwhile, emergency services in England and Wales are bracing for further wildfires here, as another heatwave is expected this week. Temperatures could reach up to 33 degrees. A yellow heat health alert has been issued from Tuesday morning to Friday across the East and West Midlands, the south of England and Yorkshire. Andy Burnham has warned the NHS will collapse unless action is taken to fix social care. In his first major interview since becoming Prime Minister, he promised to bring significant change as quickly as he can. The Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, has urged him to rule out tax rises or increase borrowing to pay for the reforms. The Prime Minister has also said the government has to get really serious about reducing the welfare bill. He suggested ministers could tighten the conditions to receive support, while insisting more should be done to help people into work. It comes as the number of people claiming personal independence payment has passed 4 million for the first time, roughly doubling since 2019, with many teenagers claiming the disability benefit for conditions such as anxiety. Former funeral director Robert Bush will be sentenced this week after admitting 67 offences that spanned more than a decade and affected hundreds of grieving families. The former owner of Legacy Independent Funeral Directors in Hull pleaded guilty to fraud, preventing lawful burials, stealing from charities and giving families the wrong ashes. His sentencing at Hull Crown Court is expected to last 5 days, with more than 100 victims due to give impact statements. Comedian and conservationist Bill Oddie has died at the age of 85. Charities he supported, including the RSPCA, have paid tribute to his tireless commitment to British wildlife. He first found fame in the 1970s as a member of the comic trio The Goodies, but was best known for presenting wildlife programmes including Spring Watch and Autumn Watch. Those are your GB News headlines. Now, the markets.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
OK, welcome back to Martin Daubney with me, Christopher Hope. Now, Andy Burnham is under mounting pressure to break his silence and address the Channel crisis as nearly 1,000 small boat migrants arrived in his first week in power alone. Last week, we even saw a mega dinghy that carried a whopping 165 migrants to our shores from northern France. Some of those who have come here are feared to have fled here after stabbing a man to death on a beach in France. These exclusive pictures show a forensic team inspecting the boat. Now, joining me now is GB News Deputy Political Editor Tom Harwood. Tom, you've been in the briefing this morning with the PM's official spokesman. Why are they not talking about the small boats crisis?
Well, it's strange, isn't it? Andy Burnham has wanted to seem like an active Prime Minister from the off. He has been having a new announcement every weekday of his premiership, and we're expecting that to continue into this week too. A relentless drumbeat in terms of change, and he wants to be seen as a change Prime Minister, because that's what the country is looking out for. And yet it's strange, therefore, that of all of the different, dozens of policy announcements we'll have in the coming weeks, there has not yet been one scheduled for migration. In fact, Andy Burnham hasn't made a single public comment off his own bat about migration, be that legal or illegal. He hasn't commented on the almost 1,000 small boat crossings that we saw over the last week, expected to continue into this week too. And when I raised this with the Prime Minister's official spokesman, it was really interesting to hear the response. It was an almost complete deflection to what does Andy Burnham think about this? Well, he appointed Shabana Mahmood. And what does Andy Burnham think? Quote, clear through his reappointment of Mahmood his commitment to deliver on reform and get migration under control. It's almost like Andy Burnham doesn't want to talk about it at all, and he's palming it all off to his choice for Home Secretary.
And he referred also to the interview with Laura Kuenssberg, the only one that's taken place since his election, and saying, well, he referred to it then. He didn't, did he? He talked about the indefinite leave to remain and the review, and was far from sure that he'll back Shabana Mahmood on increasing it from 5 to 10 years.
Exactly. It was the only time that he has mentioned migration as Prime Minister is when he was directly asked a question of it in the one sit-down interview he has given, and even then he was less than equivocal. Now, or rather, he was... Anyway,
he was equivocal.
He was equivocal. He was less than unequivocal. Too many double negatives. Right, this is the problem. Because there is a sort of mood on the backbenches of the Labour Party, which Andy Burnham clearly wants to be more in tune with. So has he made Shabana Mahmood a bit of a fool guy? Has he made Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, to say all the nasty stuff so that Andy Burnham can still be Mr Popular, Mr Friends with everyone? He doesn't have to do an Islands of Strangers speech in the way that Keir Starmer did and undermined so many of his relationships with his own party.
Having said it, I mean...
Well, exactly.
It is true, of course, being Home Secretary is a graveyard of politicians, and it's very rare. I mean, Theresa May was in it for 6 years, letting David Cameron do everything, all the nice bits, and Theresa May do the difficult bits behind the scenes. So that may be going back to the traditional relationship between the Prime Minister and Home Secretary. But, of course, we think she may have turned down the Chancellor job to stay where she is.
Yes, a lot of speculation about what that Chancellor briefing was all about. Yes. Was it some sort of five-dimensional chess behind the scenes, trying to pressure people into different areas? And yet, it does seem that it is a significant move to reappoint Shabana Mahmood. This does show that this government is committed to some reform. I think the question that has to be asked here is all the previously announced reform enough? Clearly, it will get legal migration down. Some projections expect that legal migration might even get to net zero next year. That is, as many people leaving the country as coming in.
Legally arriving.
Legally arriving. And that would be... Oh, actually, I think the net figures include illegal arrivals as well. But that would be an astonishing achievement from the government. Where they don't have a holistic approach, however, is with regard to small boat crossings. They say they're cracking down on the gangs. Numbers are slightly down on last year, which was an exceptionally high year of crossings. It seems, though, Andy Burnham is only committing to the policy of the last government and not going further. I can't see new announcements coming in this area.
Can I ask you quickly about the BBC? Now, the BBC have done this interview with Laura Kuenssberg. It's recorded last week. It's airing on it's on their feeds now, on their channel, I think, at some point shortly. What do you make of this? I mean, he is really avoiding scrutiny, isn't he? There's been one conversation with him with political editors in the Garden of Number 10 last Monday. 5 questions were asked. I was there, but the broadcast journalists weren't asked to ask any questions. He's done a sit-down. He's done the odd pool clip. There's one due today as well. But he really isn't saying much to us, is he? He's avoiding us, really, and talking, frankly, to social media people. He's doing his own route. What do you make of this? It appears to be working in the polls, for example. Working in the polls, yes. But this is a difficult route to pick, because ultimately you can't have the media against you. He's riding, at the moment, I think, a honeymoon period with the media, because a lot of people will be trying to get close to this version of Number 10. So they'll be pulling their punches, frankly, in these early days. Will the media be so supine a year into the administration, once the relationships that are going to be built have built and those that are not going to be built have not been built? Ultimately, I think it's always difficult in the early days of a new premiership, because people really do want access to people in power. And find out what's going on. And to find out what's going on. And so they don't want to tread on too many toes. That won't always be the case. Have we got this image of the More in Common polling we can put up now? Not yet, no. Well, anyway, this polling today is showing a 6-point swing, isn't it? Reform down to Labour up 4 points from polling over the weekend. And that's a significant moment in polling, isn't it, with Labour reform? It's a really significant moment. Reform has led... amongst every major pollster, has led every single poll, more than 300 polls, since April 2025. There's not been one poll from a major pollster that has put Reform anything other than first place. Well, that streak has ended today. And here we can see, for those watching on television, the More in Common poll, Labour now at 28%, which is the highest they have been for quite some time. But yes, the real significance of this is now Reform, for the first time in a year and a half, no longer the number one party in polling. So Reform down to their Labour up 4, that's a 6-point swing. That is significant, and we'll be talking about that all through the show. Tom Howard, thank you for joining us, and do stay with us through the afternoon. I'm joined now by the political editor of The Independent, David Maddox. David Maddox, it's working, isn't it? They're cutting out traditional journalists like us, but it's working in the polls.
It's working for now. I'm not sure it's going to continue working going forward. I slightly dispute what Tom said about the media being supine with him. I just think they're trying not to give us a chance. They know we're not supine, so they're trying to cut us out at the moment. I mean, it was 4 questions, by the way, in the Rose Garden, not 5, in 6 minutes. It was not exactly the greatest grilling on earth we were given the opportunity of there. So I don't know, but I mean, it is working for them now. I wonder if some of it is of reforms I'm making. They're clearly having a bad patch, are clearly struggling. And, you know, Andy Burnham's brought the kind of good vibes back to Labour. We'll see how long it lasts.
And David, do you think Karen Benlock had a point last week? She said that Andy Burnham, the guy on screen there, is giving small answers to big questions. I mean, he's talking about the money he's spending is rounding errors on the edge of the government spending, isn't it? But it's kind of working on a vibes basis, but he hasn't got the big answers, maybe to the issue of the small boat crossings.
I think to a certain degree, there's some truth in that. I mean, you're right, he's avoiding migration like the plague. He's also avoiding the B word, a favourite of yours and mine, the Brexit word, like the plague as well. His Brexit minister this morning was on Sky, looked as though he'd swallowed a spider or something when he was actually asked about Brexit. You know, so it's he's picking his big topics, but not really giving great answers. So, you know, it's wanting to fix the social care crisis. Well, you know, we would love to see an answer to that. It's at least 15 years old, the social care crisis. Wanting to end homelessness again, you know, these are kind of high vaunted aims, but not, you know, not much detail in how much he's doing. And, you know, you're right, the detail we're getting is on small beer, really. Literally business rates cuts for pubs and stuff like that, which is, you know, I guess is welcome, but it's not going to really shift the dial going forward.
No, he's going to need to get out and about, isn't he, when things start getting difficult for his government, as they always do, particularly on the international stage. You can't rely on a video of him having some pork scratchings in a pub to explain something happening with Iran, for example. He's got to engage, and I guess that might come. I guess it's sunny, it's August, it's a coronation. I mean, he's so not known, I think, by so many people, and we don't really know, you know, what he thinks about things. We have to go through these transcripts of these recorded interviews he gives to the BBC, for example, and work out what he means. And it's always frustrating when the question isn't pushed harder. So, for example, on benefits, he'll bring that bill down by building more council homes. That's his answer on benefits. I mean, that leaves so many questions about working age benefits, for example, that aren't being pushed on him.
Yeah, I mean, there are no real answers to anything at the moment. There's nothing substantive at all. And it's you know, at least he's willing to, you know, he's showing a willingness to tackle those big issues. And, you know, we have to remember the guy's only been in power for a week. But, you know, my problem in some ways with him not engaging with the media properly is that at some point he's going to actually need those relationships and need to have built that kind of goodwill when he actually has to deal with these big questions. And, you know, he will come under scrutiny. Yeah. And to some degree, he's burning a lot of his kind of goodwill early in that respect.
Yeah, Dave Mannix, before you go, I've got to ask you about Brexit. And the Express, you led the campaign to leave the European Union, and now I hear the Independent has launched a campaign to rejoin, and you're part of that.
Well, I'm fronting it up, Chris. You know, I can't think of anybody better. You know, I know the weaknesses of both sides very well. You know, but I mean, I think on a serious point, though, you know, for Brexit, when you and I were on the front line journalistically fighting for Brexit, what we were promised compared to what was being delivered, there's quite a big gulf in the, you know, and the vision of Brexit has not worked out. And, you know, there is a younger generation of people who I believe now are losing out as a result of it. And, you know, that is why this question is going to be revisited again and probably again and again.
Here we go. Martin Daubney. That's a question for Martin Daubney, that to you, Dave Maddox. You'd have loved your answer too. Good to see you. Come on again. Thank you for joining us today. Now, moving on. Andy Burnham has hinted he will hit southern homeowners with higher property taxes. He suggested he would change the existing council tax regime to create fairness for those in the north.
People here in Greater Manchester who pay a much higher council tax than people living in much larger homes in London. So the Chancellor before, Rachel Reeves, was right to start to reform council tax to create some fairness there.
I'm joined now by the economic journalist Mani Bashardad. Mani, thank you for joining us today. What do you make of this? I always think playing around with council tax, it quickly becomes a debate about a poll tax. And that, of course, brought down Margaret Thatcher's government, because you're going to find people living on their own in big homes paying more.
So there's always, in economic questions, you have an answer which is simple, clear and wrong. And I think Andy Burnham's approach in his ideology of Manchesterism is the same thing. He has a type of class divide, a class struggle between the south and the north. And I think that's quite wrong. The model of land value tax that he wants to replace the council tax is a flat rate for all mansions, which is a new model of mansion tax, which Rachel Reeves had this idea. I think it's going to lead to wealth exodus that we had in the last year. More than 16,000 millionaires left the UK, and more than China, more than any other place in the whole planet. But his idea is quite common sense. He's saying there are counties in north of England, which the average house price is £130,000, but they pay a council tax of £2,500. But in Westminster, we have house prices of £800,000, with a council tax of £1,000. So his idea of fairness makes sense. But there are two problems with his policy. First of all, it's going to be a flat rate. And we know historically with the poll tax of Margaret Thatcher, I do not think flat rate taxes are going to work in the political climate of this country. The second problem is he's having this type of zero-sum mindset, which he thinks if we want to make North more prosperous, we should get more money from the South. I think that's the greatest mistake that we had in the recent policy, at least in the last 15 years. I believe in the old idea that the rising tide lifts all the boats up.
Yeah.
That's not what Andy Burnham believes. And he wants to get more money from the South and give it to the North. That's just a redistributive model which kills the incentive to create more, to create wealth. And that's the main problem that we have in this country. The IPOs in London Stock Exchange has been 20th in the world. That's embarrassing. Mexico and Oman had a better performance than United Kingdom. So I think if we want to get back to growth, high growth rates like Margaret Thatcher 2.6% or Tony Blair more than 3%, we need to change our mindset from zero-sum thinking to positive-sum thinking. And this fight that he has, and he said that he's going to, he said about the vested interest that you can't have it like this anymore. I think that's a bad rhetoric.
Yeah.
If you're a wealth creator in the UK and you hear that, that's not a good vibe, is it?
Well, when he says, I mean, yeah, that comparison between Westminster and Hartlepool is quite striking. Under his reforms, the typical council tax will go up from just over £1,000 in Westminster to more than £2,200, for example. So that, you know, people in Westminster generally are more well off than those living in Hartlepool. That could be a fairness issue, but it might be punishing councils which are quite efficient. So Westminster Council may have lower costs, and therefore the council tax could be less. So that could be an unintended consequence.
Exactly. As you said, building up on your point, you're changing an efficient, localized system of tax with a decentralized system. And that's going to have a couple of problems. The first problem is the practical problem, that you're going to estimate houses again. The last estimation, as we know, was in 1991. And then you're going to have these estimations again, and that's going to have a high bureaucratic costs for the government, which I don't have. They have enough money for that. And then after changing that, then you're going to implement a centralized tax system, which is going to be like a wealth tax. It's technically a wealth tax. And the unintended consequence of that would be wealth exodus, because it's going to cost more for the better off. And I think if he wants to change the tax system in housing, the best thing to get rid of is the stamp duty. The stamp duty, as economists believe, is the worst model of tax that we have in the housing market. And I think if he wants to do some serious reform, which is fair and also efficient, and it doesn't have that much administrative cost, I think he should look at a stamp duty. And I think he ruled it out, and I think that's a big mistake.
And Manny, is that simpler to do than play with council tax? It's just such a loaded area, council tax, when it's brought in to replace the community charge or the poll tax. It was done by Michael Heseltine to try and detoxify the whole debate, because it brought down Margaret Thatcher, of course, in 1990.
Indeed, and I think the step after land value tax would be a wealth tax, because the government would have enough data about people's wealth, and the practical problem of wealth tax would be solved. And I think it's it plays like a domino, and I do not agree with it.
Yeah. Manny Basharad, thank you for joining us today, and fascinating. We'll see how that plays out in coming weeks and months. Thank you. Still to come, the funeral director, Robert Bush, faces sentencing after admitting 67 offences, including giving families wrong ashes, preventing 30 burials and stealing mourner donations. Unbelievable. We'll be live from Hull Crown Court straight after this. This is GB News.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories. And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, former funeral director Robert Bush will be sentenced this week after admitting 67 offences that spanned more than a decade. The former owner has pled guilty to fraud, preventing lawful burials, stealing from charities and giving families the wrong ashes. And a warning, this report might contain distressing content for viewers and listeners. Joining me now is GB News national reporter Sophie Reaper from Hull Crown Court. Sophie, a shocking case.
Indeed, Chris, and a highly emotional case as well. That's what we've been hearing this morning and throughout the afternoon is victim impact statements from some of the loved ones who've been affected by the devastating actions of Robert Bush. You say there over 200 people impacted by his crimes. He's pleaded guilty to 67 charges, including 30 counts of preventing lawful burial. We've been hearing about some of the details of his crimes this morning, with someone describing the scene at the Legacy funeral site as like that from a horror film. Now, we also, as I say, been hearing those victim impact statements. We heard from Christina George, who's the sister of one of the victims, Raymond Dagnall, and she said, when I found out that Raymond was just on a rack wearing a soiled gown, the guilt was just too much. They hadn't even washed him. It makes my heart break that I was so close to him and I couldn't do anything. I didn't even know he was still there. Raymond was my brother and he didn't deserve this. I'll never forgive Bush for this. And Chris, one theme that's run throughout these victim statements we've been hearing today has been guilt. So many of them saying they feel guilty because of what Bush has done to their loved ones. In fact, so many of them referring to their own guilt that the judge presiding over today's proceedings took a moment to address the court and to let these victims know that actually they're not to blame, that it's Robert Bush's actions and his depravity that is at fault here. Now, we also heard a statement on behalf of Rhea Burton, whose grandfather, David Burton, was discovered 140 days after his death. And she recalled being given ashes that she believed were those of her grandfather and having them made into necklaces. The court also heard that, in fact, her uncle had had some of those ashes that they believed to be those of David Burton taken and put in some ink to be turned into a tattoo. Of course, the family then learned that those ashes were not those of David Burton and instead those of a stranger. In that statement, she said, Robert Bush assured us our loved one would be treated with as much love and care as any human being deserved, and that when they learned the truth, it shattered their world. Now, the judge has confirmed that the sentencing will take place on Friday of this week. This is, of course, day 1 of 5 of this sentencing. But until then, Bush will be remanded in custody, and we will continue to hear many, many more statements from the victims and their loved ones who've been impacted by the actions of Robert Bush.
Sophie Rupert, thank you for joining us there from Hull. An absolutely shocking case. Thank you for bringing it to us. Now, still to come, a bombshell report finds that diversity programmes are costing police forces tens of millions of pounds of our tax money every year and contributing to two-tier justice. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Chris, thank you. Headlines at 3:32. 3 women have been taken to hospital. 2 of them are severely injured after a knife attack in Paris. The suspect has been arrested. 3 people have been killed and 4 others injured, including a 2-year-old child, after a shooting at a food festival in the US city of Seattle. The suspect is now in police custody. Tourists are being warned to stay away from southwest France, where wildfires are just 7 miles from Bordeaux, and officials are considering a total evacuation of the city. Around 320,000 people across France and Spain have now been forced to leave their homes. Comedian and conservationist Bill Oddie, who was best known for starring in The Goodies and presenting Springwatch, has died at the age of 85. Those are your headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello again, very good afternoon to you. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Some blustery wet weather across northern parts through the next 24 hours or so. Further south it's looking dry with temperatures rising as well. That's because we have high pressure currently to the southwest of us, but that is going to extend its way further north and east, keeping things generally settled in the south. A different story further north. There's been a fair bit of cloud, a bit of rain around at the moment, and there's more of that to come through the end of the day, with more persistent rain arriving through this evening and overnight, initially across Northern Ireland, but that wet weather spilling its way in across parts of Scotland, where it could turn quite heavy for some, especially in the west. All the while, towards the south and southeast, it's staying dry, some clear skies overnight, with temperatures only dropping to lows of around 16, 17, possibly 18 Celsius in some places, so a relatively warm night indeed. A wet start to the day across many parts of Scotland. Quite blustery, quite windy, especially in northern areas as well. Some of that rain could be a bit heavy, a bit persistent, especially towards western parts. Across Northern Ireland, it's cloudy. There'll be outbreaks of rain, a bit more intermittent here compared to across Scotland, where it's going to be more persistent. And a bit of rain for northern and western parts of England and Wales as well. Further south and east, well, it's drier, it's brighter as well, with some decent sunshine. And that's sort of how it's going to stay through the bulk of tomorrow, really. A lot of the wet weather across Scotland will break up and start to clear away, but it will be still quite windy in the far north. Elsewhere, outbreaks of rain here and there, mostly light for northern and western parts. Further south and east, staying dry. A decent amount of sunshine, and with that then temperatures rising. We're looking at highs in the low 30s again around the London area. Even elsewhere in the south, it's going to feel very warm, if not hot. More outbreaks of rain to come across northern parts through tomorrow evening. Further south across central and southern areas, a dry picture to end the day. More fine weather to come through the end of the week across southern areas, with temperatures peaking in the mid-30s perhaps on Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. There is a collision on the M3 eastbound between junctions 3 and 2 in Thorpe. The M11 southbound at junction 14 in Girton is affected by a collision. The M6 southbound between junctions 12 and 11A in Birmingham East has a collision causing delays of around 1 hour. In Scotland, the A720 westbound between the A7 Sheriff Hall roundabout and the A68 Millerhill junction has 2 lanes restricted, causing queues. Across Wales, the M4 westbound from J24 Coldra to J26 Malpas is congested. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services are disrupted at Preston, and cross-country buses replace trains between Torquay and Paignton. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. I'm not Martin Daubney. I'm Christopher Hope, in for the great man on GB News all day till 6. Now, some your says have come in from some of your viewers. You don't seem very happy about this polling for More in Common, giving a 6-point swing over the weekend from Reform to Labour. They're now 4 points ahead of Reform. The first time it's happened across many of these polls since April last year. That's 300 plus polls where Reform has led. That has ended today. Is this a moment in the recovery, maybe, of Labour under a new Prime Minister and leader, Andy Burnham? Ian Kelman says that no pollster ever has stopped and asked for his opinion, and he's lived long enough. He's 80 shortly. And he wonders why he's not been asked for an opinion by a pollster. Carol Quayle, someone's fiddling with the voting intention figures, says Carol Quayle. Well, the pollster would disagree with that. And PW says a Burnham Green Lib Dum coalition is the worst nightmare. Well, that's not a surprise, because as things stand with these polling figures, although Labour will be the biggest party, they would rely on support from other parties to win and to win outright. And that is the problem there. OK. Moving on now. A bombshell new report has found that diversity programmes are costing police forces tens of millions of pounds a year, contributing to what critics call two-tier justice. The right-of-centre think tank Policy Exchange said that the Nottingham stabbings, the Southport atrocity and the murder of Henry Novak were examples where the state failed to deal properly with criminal behaviour due to concerns about being labelled racist and offending minority groups. I'm now joined by the father of Grace O'Malley Kumar, who was killed in the Nottingham attacks. Dr. Sanjoy Kumar, thank you for joining us today on GB News. This is shocking, isn't it? It looks from these figures that the police have got the wrong way around. In your case, they allowed the killer not to be treated properly because he was black.
I've got to be honest with you. I think whilst I'm absolutely horrified by the figure that you've quoted, 630 million is an unbelievable amount of money with which you could do so much good in the country. I'm actually shocked, but I've got to say in our case, I think race and diversity was used as an excuse rather than anything else.
Right.
I think at the first sectioning event where the psychiatrists had said that they carried out a mental health assessment, but they didn't section Valda Kalakane. That's because I think what they were doing in our particular case was providing an excuse, and that shouldn't happen. What they were doing really is looking at something like this and saying, look, all of us do ethnicity and diversity training. You have to do it for almost every job. And I don't think it should be used as an excuse. In our case, it was very much used as an excuse to not actually section Valda Kalakane. In the other cases, I would also say I'm a man of medicine, not a man of law. But it very much seems like, I tell you what, every time you need an excuse, for the authorities, they pull out this card when it's actually not required to be pulled out in the right and the most suitable way and purpose. And I think they're seeking excuses rather than accountability. And that does bother me because it is about accountability. It's about what you did and what you didn't do and whether you can account for it. And on this occasion, I'm afraid you can't just use an excuse of, we were thinking of ethnicity and diversity. It's almost as preposterous as saying, I took someone on for this job, who's absolutely awful at doing it, but I did it because, they were from a diverse group and that's what I had to do. It should be a meritocracy and nothing else. And I don't think that, this should be used. In our case, it was used as an excuse.
Yeah. The author of the report, David Spencer, says that the police should be acting without fear or favour, and this works against that. If you look at the figure here, £631 million, 431 million on training, diversity, inclusion, equality training, £177 million on internal posts with a DEI component, and 23 million on external training and consultancy. That would have paid, it says here, for 2,000 frontline operational police officers every year to keep us all safe. It just seems that the government's getting it all the wrong way around.
Well, can I say to you, I think this matter needs investigating properly. I think you've got people here who are associated to government, who are possibly providing these courses and this training, who are making tons of money, a bit like the PPE scandal.
Yeah.
And I really don't think, any sensible person just does a course, an online course that costs nothing. And that's actually mandatory to do in my job and any other job really nowadays. So I think, when I see a bill like that, I think it's preposterous. I think one should look into it. And as you've quoted, 2,000 officers or, people who can do good to the country. I'm honestly more taken aback by that, because any kind of diversity training can be done online and it can be done for pennies. I think we've got to look at this issue a bit deeper and say, where's all this money gone? It sounds like a scam. It sounds like the companies who are hosting it are scamming the NHS, the police, and the civil service. This should be provided for pennies, and it can be provided online. It was done during COVID, but this smacks to me of like a PPE scandal. I don't think that this is money that's been spent properly. I don't want to sound like it's misappropriated. That's up to you investigators to find out. But it just does not sound right to me at all.
I'm sure the companies themselves would definitely deny misappropriation and would say they are doing what they've been contracted to do by the police forces. But there are choices being made here by bosses in these police forces to spend money on this training and not spending the same money on frontline policing and keeping us all safe. And that's the question. Is it that these police forces are more worried about being accused of having a racist issue, even when one may not be there, so they pay for this extra training so they can make sure that doesn't happen, and that kind of outweighs the need to just be fair and to treat everyone equally or such?
Can I tell you, I have to align with people I've seen recently that, you know, our country, our society has to be a meritocracy. It is not, it shouldn't be, as you have said yourself on your program just now, that I don't think that this is something where, you know, you can show leanings of any direction. The point is, if you do a good job and you're accountable for what you do, it doesn't matter about the color of your skin or what you do, where you come from. The point is, do your job. And I think if the police are going a bit to the other way, I think this is money so badly spent. I'm actually shocked by it. And even, you know, in terms of if you are doing your job, you can't be accused of much else. And I don't think really that this is, I'm really, really taken aback and shocked by this quantity of money. It's unbelievable that this money actually, in my opinion, is being squandered on a course that you can just do online. Yes, everyone should do it. Yes, we should all be sympathetic with other people and cultures and this and the other. But I tell you what, more importantly, people should be safe and families should be safe. And I think if I had to pick one or the other, I tell you what, I'd far rather keep families safe than invest this kind of money in something that's nonsensical that can be done for, you know, a thousandth of the price.
And the concern is, Dr. Kumar, is that it affects how police officers deal with situations, and they jump to when race isn't an issue. They may think it is an issue, as we saw in the issue of the killing of Henry Novak.
No, absolutely right. Look, we're a multicultural society, and I think having sympathy for everyone and whatever culture they come from is, I think, the British way. And I think, you know, the whole British sense of doing well by everyone comes from that. I'm very much a mixed family myself. But the point is that, you know, that represents London for you. That represents modern society. We all move, we all work. But if you are going to start making excuses for doing a rubbish job and an unprofessional job and then start blaming the fact that you were actually looking at race, I think there'll be many out there who will, I hope, sympathize with me and say, this guy is right. What these guys are just doing is looking for an excuse. If you do a rubbish job, you get it wrong, which they did so badly in the Novak case. And it's not my case. I'd like to pay the respect to the family and not comment on something that was so dreadfully wrong. But I think an excuse is being made. I think an excuse was made when it came to Callacane. And I think an excuse is being made here of an issue you can just jump back on top of and divide society. And I don't think that should happen.
No.
You know, it's about doing your job. It's not about the color of anyone's skin. And these people didn't do their jobs. And I tell you what, they're jumping on the bandwagon of race and things like that. And in terms of diversity training, everyone's done it. Everyone in every job has done it. We do disability training, we do diversity training, and you can't turn around and say that and use that as an excuse for doing a bad job, which is what happened here. People just didn't do their jobs. Don't jump on the bandwagon and divide society, I would say to these organizations. I tell you what, you screwed up. Take account.
Own it.
Put your hand up and own it. Absolutely right. And they're jumping on a divisional topic, which I think is wrong for our country, wrong for our people.
Dr. Sanjoy Kumar, of course, the father of Grace O'Malley Kumar, who died in the Nottingham attacks. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for campaigning on these important issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Now, Home Office spokesman said this: "We are committed to ensuring the police can perform their role without fear or favour, and are categorical that they must treat everyone equally, without discrimination, regardless of their ethnicity. This government is delivering the biggest reforms to policing in over 200 years to put officers back on the beat." OK. Now the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Another heat wave is set to impact much of Europe, bringing intense sunshine. There's very little sign of any rain. Across parts of Iberia, temperatures could push back up into the high 30s, if not the low 40s degrees Celsius. The heat may be enough to produce some very hit or miss showers across parts of Italy, but not really any significant rainfall and not really sign of much rainfall to come. The sunshine is set to continue alongside the high temperatures.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
This is really exciting. We've got 1 million people living with dementia in this country, and about 65%, 70% of them have Alzheimer's disease. This is a condition where a protein called amyloid beta builds up in plaques within the brain and interferes with the connection of nerve cells. It's a cruel disease, as I know you're aware. It robs families of the relative that they once loved, the personality that they knew, and it's the leading cause of death in this country. So numbers are only increasing as the aging population grows. But here we have in phase 3 clinical trials, which is the last stage of trials before a regulatory body approves it for use, which appears to clear some of these plaques within a few weeks. Now that's really exciting.
GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
What does this kind of day mean to you, kind of coming and doing this every year?
Well, I feel that I'm doing this for my wife, because she used to sell poppies properly, really, and I used to help her for 20 odd years. And I feel like I'm doing it for her, really. But it is nice to think that everybody appreciate what we did for being in the forces.
But tell me about your service, because you got sent out to the Far East, didn't you?
Yes. I just got engaged because I didn't think I was going to get called up, but then I did.
In your jacket here, you've got one medal for national service and one for that Hong Kong medal for that.
To be honest, I was 18 years old. And I was very excited about going. It was an adventure to me.
The People's Channel. Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Weight loss jabs could help children as young as 6 who are living with obesity. When did we start saying living with obesity? Can we not say obese children? Is that not politically correct? Well, delighted to be joined now by Sarah LeBrock, Director of All About Obesity. Sarah, I think a lot of people will feel slightly uneasy about children getting on these jabs, simply because we sort of expect, I don't know, diets to be managed by parents.
Yeah, I can totally understand why people would think that. But the point we're not talking about just overweight children here. We're talking about children living with obesity. And interestingly, you say, why do we say living with obesity? It's because they're living with a chronic condition.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. I'm Christopher Hope, sitting in for Martin Daubney on GB News. It's now 3:52. Now, residents in the Highland village of Nethy Bridge are being allowed back home, thank goodness, as a threat from a major wildfire finally eases. Let's cross live now to Nethy Bridge, where GB News' Scotland reporter Tony Maguire has the latest. Tony.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chris. So this has been a real ordeal for the people here in the Cairngorms. We're probably about 5 miles away from Aviemore and just outside the town of Nethy Bridge. Now on Friday, Police Scotland declared an emergency and requested residents leave their houses here. Quickly that was rescinded and residents were allowed to return home, but it's caused a bit of a confusion. In fact, many residents here accusing the Scottish Government of dithering because their advice and their emergency wasn't announced until after Police Scotland very much kind of prodding them along. Now, the current state of play is this: the fires are out of control. You can see quite a vast plume of smoke just beyond the hill line behind me. That is where the rest of the hot spots are kind of contained in the valley of the Cairngorms here. Much of the land around it charred to a crisp, and indeed that seems to be one of the main pockets that are remaining. Now, ultimately, the Scottish Government had requested some military assistance from the UK Government, including specifically the ability to drop water, but unfortunately the UK Government didn't have the precise material available. However, Neil Gray, the Justice Secretary, he has said that the firefighters here remaining on site have all they need to tackle these fires.
Tony Maguire, thank you for joining us there, and stay with us to the afternoon with the latest updates. Thank you. Still to come, pressure mounts on Andy Burnham, our new Prime Minister, to break his silence on how he might stop the migrants crossing the Channel. Nearly 1,000 since he became Prime Minister. This, of course, is GB News. We are Britain's #1 news channel.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, very good afternoon to you. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Some blustery wet weather across northern parts through the next 24 hours or so. Further south it's looking dry with temperatures rising as well. That's because we have high pressure currently to the southwest of us, but that is going to extend its way further north and east, keeping things generally settled in the south. A different story further north. There's been a fair bit of cloud, a bit of rain around at the moment, and there's more of that to come through the end of the day, with more persistent rain arriving through this evening and overnight, initially across Northern Ireland, but that wet weather spilling its way in across parts of Scotland, where it could turn quite heavy for some, especially in the west. All the while, towards the south and southeast, it's staying dry, some clear skies overnight, with temperatures only dropping to lows of around 16, 17, possibly 18 Celsius in some places, so a relatively warm night indeed. A wet start to the day across many parts of Scotland. Quite blustery, quite windy, especially in northern areas as well. Some of that rain could be a bit heavy, a bit persistent, especially towards western parts. Across Northern Ireland, it's cloudy. There'll be outbreaks of rain, a bit more intermittent here compared to across Scotland, where it's going to be more persistent. And a bit of rain for northern and western parts of England and Wales as well. Further south and east, well, it's drier, it's brighter as well, with some decent sunshine. And that's sort of how it's going to stay through the bulk of tomorrow, really. A lot of the wet weather across Scotland will break up and start to clear away, but it will be still quite windy in the far north. Elsewhere, outbreaks of rain here and there, mostly light for northern and western parts. Further south and east, staying dry. A decent amount of sunshine, and with that then temperatures rising. We're looking at highs in the low 30s again around the London area. Even elsewhere in the south, it's going to feel very warm, if not hot. More outbreaks of rain to come across northern parts through tomorrow evening. Further south across central and southern areas, a dry picture to end the day. More fine weather to come through the end of the week across southern areas, with temperatures peaking in the mid-30s perhaps on Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. There is a collision on the M25 anti-clockwise at Junction 5 in Sevenoaks. The M1 northbound at Junction 18 in Rugby is also affected by a collision. The A1 between Junctions 3 and 4 is closed. The A11 is closed after the A134 in Thetford. In Scotland, the A720 westbound has lane restrictions between the A7 Sheriff Hall roundabout and the A68 Miller Hill Junction. Across Wales, the M4 westbound from J24 Coldra to J26 Malpas is congested. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services are disrupted at Preston. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's a Great British Giveaway Golden Summer Celebration. Your chance to win 2 fantastic prizes. There's an incredible £60,000 in tax-free cash. Plus, you'll also get your hands on a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and a real gold bar, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, it's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show with me, Christopher Hope, on GB News, broadcasting here until 6 p.m. Here's what's on today's show. We've got a brand new Prime Minister, you know that, don't you? But the same old problems remain for Andy Burnham. They look set to sink Labour possibly on the beaches of Dover as nearly 1,000 migrants cross the channel under his watch. Pressure mounts on him to break his silence on how he might stop the boats. The PM has suggested homeowners in the south should pay higher property taxes for fairness. But will Labour's Robin Hood plot to rob the south to pay for the north resurrect the age-old north-south divide? Is Labour fanning the flames of a new class war?
I want to rule it out. Yeah, there's no early general election. I don't think people want it, you know.
Andy Burnham has sort of ruled out an early general election on the BBC, despite recent speculation in Westminster that he might seek a fresh mandate for his leadership and his policy ideas. But what does he mean by no early election? And with the Burnham bounce putting Labour ahead of reform in his first week of power, might the pressure to call one become just too much to stop not to do? A bombshell new report has found diversity programmes are costing police forces tens of millions of pounds a year of our tax money, contributing to what critics call a two-tier justice system. After the atrocities of Nottingham, Southport and the murder of Henry Novak, is it time to do a Trump and kick DEI out of our police forces for good? And you're in luck. Do you get it? You're in luck. If you're looking to stay in the UK and have an incontinent child. An Albanian drug dealer has avoided deportation as an asylum judge has said it would be unduly harsh to separate him from his daughter as she wets the bed. Is this more proof that the lunatics really are running the asylum system? Send us your views and post your comments by going to gbnews.com/your say. And many of you are getting in touch about the polling putting Labour ahead of reform for the first time in more than 300 polls. If you can scan your QR code on your screens now, send us your message. It's time, though, first for your news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Chris, thank you and good afternoon. It's just gone 4 o'clock. These are your headlines. A pregnant woman was among 3 women who have been stabbed in a knife attack in Paris. The women have been taken to hospital. 2 are severely injured. It's reported the suspect attacked them in the street with 2 kitchen knives. French authorities say the man has been detained by an off-duty police officer. The terror suspect, who is accused of driving a van into a crowd of people at a Pride event in Berlin, has been shot and killed by police. 1 woman was killed in the initial attack and 29 others injured. Officers say 21-year-old Abdul Balu was known to authorities and had Islamist links. Police found him after an hours-long manhunt. It's understood they opened fire after he ran at officers with a weapon. The German Interior Minister has raised the country's terror threat level, warning other copycat attacks couldn't be ruled out. 3 people have been killed and 4 others injured, including a 2-year-old child, after a shooting in the US city of Seattle. The city's mayor says the suspect, who opened fire at a food festival, has been taken into custody. Police are urging people to avoid the area. Tourists are being warned to stay away from southwest France, where severe wildfires are just 7 miles from Bordeaux. Officials are considering a total evacuation of the city. The number of people who've been forced to flee their homes across France and Spain has now risen to 320,000. Travel journalist Simon Calder has shared some advice to those booked to visit the affected area.
Clearly, this is a desperate situation for the communities there and people putting their lives on their line to fight the fires and so on. But as you say, there are many people booked to travel to this beautiful area of France who are now thinking, what do I do? British Airways is saying if you're booked in or out of Bordeaux, you can change your flight. But otherwise, if you fixed up everything on your own, it's kind of a matter of talking to each of the people involved and hoping that you can get things moved. But there's no automatic entitlement, and your travel insurance won't necessarily be of any help.
Meanwhile, emergency services in England and Wales are bracing for further wildfires here, as another heatwave is expected this week. Temperatures could reach up to 33 degrees. A yellow heat health alert has been issued from Tuesday morning to Friday across the East and West Midlands, the south of England and Yorkshire. Andy Burnham has warned the NHS will collapse unless action is taken to fix social care. In his first major interview since becoming Prime Minister, he promised to bring significant change as quickly as he can. The Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, has urged him to rule out tax rises or increased borrowing to pay for the reforms. The Prime Minister has also said the government has to get really serious about reducing the welfare bill. He suggested ministers could tighten the conditions to receive support, while insisting more should be done to help people into work. It comes as the number of people claiming personal independence payment has passed 4 million for the first time, roughly doubling since 2019, with many teenagers claiming the disability benefit for conditions such as anxiety. Former funeral director Robert Bush will be sentenced this week after admitting 67 offences that spanned more than a decade and affected hundreds of grieving families. The former owner of Legacy Independent Funeral Directors in Hull pleaded guilty to fraud, preventing lawful burials, stealing from charities and giving families the wrong ashes. His sentencing at Hull Crown Court is expected to last 5 days, with more than 100 victims due to give impact statements. Comedian and conservationist Bill Oddie has died at the age of 85. Charities he supported, including the RSPCA, have paid tribute to his tireless commitment to British wildlife. He first found fame in the 1970s as a member of the comic trio The Goodies, but was best known for presenting wildlife programmes, including Spring Watch and Autumn Watch. Those are your headlines for now. I have more for you in half an hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Andy Burnham is under mounting pressure to break his silence and address the Channel crisis as nearly 1,000 small migrants have arrived in the UK in his first week of power alone. Last week, we even saw a mega dinghy that carried a whopping 165 migrants to Britain. There it is, moored up in Dover. Some of those who feared to have fled here after stabbing to death a man on a beach in France. These exclusive pictures show a forensic team inspecting the boat. Joining me now is GB News' Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood. Tom, why is he silent on such an important matter?
It's curious, isn't it? Andy Burnham has been wanting to present the idea of a very active government, being out there on the front foot for his first 100 days or however many days it will be. We've had a new policy announcement every single day. We certainly saw that last week. We're expecting to see that in this week as well. Announcements on the daily. And yet, one area where Andy Burnham has not made a single public pronouncement of his own back has been migration, and specifically small boats. Now, I went to a press briefing in Downing Street earlier today and asked the Prime Minister's official spokesman about this. And yet, the answer that I was given is that Andy Burnham has expressed his view on this matter through his appointment of Shabana Mahmood as Home Secretary, which is a curious way to sort of ventriloquise your position. But Andy Burnham very clearly has reappointed Shabana Mahmood. Now, a lot of people say that shows his commitment, and it certainly does show commitment to reforms.
It signals it, maybe, without saying it, Tom.
Signals commitment to reforms that were already in place.
Yes.
And yet, there is a question mark over how many of those reforms will be watered down. Andy Burnham gave indication that some might be watered down over the weekend. And then it gets the question, well, clearly the migrant crossings have not been fixed as an issue. What if there is new policy that needs to be announced? What if the government needs to change policy in some area? Andy Burnham has committed to the previous broad stretch of reform, but ultimately this is a problem that is now growing. After a lull in the English Channel, last week saw almost 1,000 new arrivals. This week we're sure to see a very similar number again. It seems like this is back on the uptick, and at some point the government is going to have to face up to it.
And we haven't heard from him about it at all. He talked about HMO Britain in Ashton Town Football Club the day after he was elected as the MP for Makerfield. That means people moving into, asylum seekers moving into communities next door to GB News viewers and listeners in Makerfield. He knows it's an issue, but he said nothing about how he wants to stop it, has he, at all? I mean, he's an open book on this.
He's a complete open book on this. It has to be said the Prime Minister's spokesman was asked about the previous government's policy to continue the end of use of asylum hotels by the end of the Parliament. That policy commitment remains, and yet, of course, the solution from the previous government was largely moving asylum seekers from hotels into houses of multiple occupancy. I would argue an equally controversial place for many of these people
Perhaps more so.
to be.
Perhaps more so, because they're next door to people's homes.
Yeah, next door to people's homes could be more expensive for the taxpayer. This is one of the curious things that I think a lot of people didn't quite get about the asylum hotels, because it seems so counterintuitive. The reason why hotels were used is because once you take into account all of the obligations on the housing quality that is required of migrants, and a lot of these obligations were added in the last 20 or 30 years, it turns out that hotels were genuinely the cheapest way to house a lot of people to the quality that statute says they must be housed. So the Bibby Stockholm, for example, a barge, ended up being more expensive than hotels. Many rules about how many people there can be to a room, many rules
of
about
human rights rules, or
so not just human rights laws, but Tony Blair brought in a huge numbers of standards to do with asylum accommodation. These standards make it very hard for Britain to just set up a cheap sort of set of accommodation, and they really bind the government's hands. So according to these rules, the Treasury ran the numbers and said, well, this hotel...
And that's why we can't put them in a tented city or marquees or...
Exactly.
Yeah. Look, some polling breaking today, which is really important, isn't it, for Reform and Labour?
Yeah, really, really significant news, this. For the last year and a half, Reform has been first place in every single poll from every single major pollster. Well, that ends today. We've seen a new poll here published by More in Common, a respected pollster, that has for the first time put Labour clearly in the lead. 28% to Reform's 24%. A 4-point lead there for the Labour Party.
And a 6-point swing because Reform were down 2 points.
And a 6-point swing. And a lead for the Labour Party for the first time since April 2025.
That is a moment, because Nigel Farage often says how he's been leading the polls for 300 consecutive polls, but it ends today, because you're seeing that elsewhere, not just More in Common, elsewhere too.
We have definitely seen a swing in other pollsters. More in Common is the first to have Labour clearly ahead, but we have seen over the last week a definite narrowing of that gap. There have been some polls in the last week that have put Reform level first place with Labour. This is the first one that has Labour clearly ahead, and more than that, it continues a trend that we've seen from other pollsters. This doesn't look like an outlier because it continues that trend.
So despite our saying, one, to talk about the big issue for our viewers, small boats, doesn't matter. He's polling quite well. So they would say...
Well, this does coincide, frankly. I think public opinion is downstream from events. Over the last few months, we haven't had many small boat crossings. That changed last week. That might filter through to the public this week. That might filter through to the polls the following week.
Tom Harwood, our Deputy Presenter, thank you for joining us, and to see you later in the show, of course. I'm joined now by the former Immigration Minister, Kevin Foster. Kevin, thank you for joining us. Do you think by not talking about the small boats crisis, Andy Burnham is hoping it might go away?
Well, he might be hoping it will go away, and he's certainly, and just having a look at those polls, very much focusing on trying to bring back left-wing voters from groups like the Green Party and to a lesser extent the Liberal Democrats. You can see he's probably succeeding in doing that. But they're still only at 28%. That's still well below the levels at which he'd perhaps be confident of getting a majority at the next election. And that means he needs to pull more people back who are traditional Labour voters in places like Wigan, where he's now an MP, in places like Barnsley and others, and Sunderland, that voted heavily for Reform in the local elections. He's going to need to be talking about this, and he's going to end up talking about it because, as both you and I know, we're coming into good weather over summer. That's the time when people cross the channel in small boats.
And you think the crossings will continue at the same rate? We don't know yet what he thinks, do we, about these crossings? We haven't heard him talk about how he might frustrate the work of the criminal gangs. We know what Keir Starmer was doing, which is squeeze the supply of boats and engines from China, boats from Germany, and that's why we're seeing these bigger boats landing more migrants now.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of emphasis over the last 2 years on trying to tackle the law enforcement side of this, smash the gangs, as Keir Starmer has said many a time. That catchphrase and slogan has declined and been used less as it's become clear that, that'll have an impact, but it's not the solution in itself. And of course, numbers last year were much higher than they were in 2024 and 2023. Numbers are currently about where they were for this time of year in 2023. So what it says is they want to go further. They are going to have to look at things like human rights law reform, certainly going further than some of what they're currently proposing to do, which will tackle cases like the one we've heard of today, but isn't really going to get to the nub of the issues around small boats. And also having a solution of what do you actually do with small boat arrivals you don't want in the UK? Because at the moment, with, for example, an Afghan national, an Iranian, what do you actually do if they arrive from France? France won't take them back. You don't want them here. But of course, it's highly unlikely Tehran's going to be agreeing any immigration returns anytime soon, given what's going on in the Middle East currently. And we don't have any agreements at the moment to return to Afghanistan. So that's where things like a third country come up again. Is he going to reopen that one? Yes, people like Shaban Mahmood might be prepared to consider it, but is he prepared to take on a lot of the Labour backbench who this is not what they got elected to do?
Yeah, it's a worry for them, and we've heard him talk about HMO Britain. He understands from campaigning in the Makerfield by-election how this is a big issue for reform-facing seats at the election and for all communities, really. I wonder what more he will do about it. When asked about it in this pre-recorded interview with the BBC, the only one he's given since becoming Prime Minister, he talked about the indefinite leave to remain, should that go up to from 5 to 10 years to make it harder for migrants to settle here. But he says he gave clear indication he's looking at that closely and may actually water it down, I felt.
Yeah, and it's worth remembering that the increase of 10 years was proposed back in May last year. So, this is something that's been kicking around for quite a while, partly because of opposition on Labour's backbenches. But even then, that wouldn't get hugely to the core of the small boats issue, because many of those who come in small boats were probably on a 10-year route to settlement anyway, even without that changing. And it's not going to deter people who realistically you can't remove anyway and are playing on that aspect of the reality of immigration operations. So if he wants to really tackle small boats, he is going to have to look at basically what people like President Trump have been doing and what Australia did. So far, he hasn't given a speech on this. He hasn't made specific commitments. But, you look at his commitment to try and end rough sleeping, he's going to need those very high mows for that.
Just before you go, do you think he may just choose not to talk about it because that may help them? I mean, frankly, talking about it and nothing happening was pretty bad for the last two Prime Ministers, Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. Perhaps not talking about it in the same way might make people look away, or do you think people will see it for what it is, avoiding the issue?
People will see it as avoiding if he says nothing, but I think what he'll sensibly do is avoid coming out with another great slogan. Because what happened for both Keir Starmer and for Rishi Sunak is they both came out with a great slogan that sounded all very catchy, great to use on a show like this. But then, of course, when the plans were actually put to the test, they didn't work. And that's the problem. So we won't see a smash the gangs or a stop the boat style slogan. And actually, to credit to him if he doesn't go down that path, but he won't be able to ignore this because of just the reality and the images of people arriving each morning at Dover that'll be on our screens.
That's right. Kevin Foster, the former immigration minister in the last Conservative government, thank you for joining us today on GB News. Now, some breaking news. The Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, has welcomed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to the UK. There they are. The leaders held a bilateral meeting in Portsmouth before remarks were delivered to members of both Ukrainian and British armed forces. Speaking on board the HMS Queen Elizabeth, one of our two aircraft carriers, Andy Burnham pledged his unwavering support for Ukraine.
As a sign of our intent, I can announce today that we are going further. We're providing new, homegrown jamming technology to protect Ukrainian drones. It will help them to hit their targets and help save Ukrainian lives. It also shows the kind of innovation our industries can deliver together. Second, we will support you to get to a full and unconditional ceasefire. Ukraine has already changed the story of this war. You are turning the tables on Russia. So we will keep up the pressure, pushing for a ceasefire and a resumption of negotiations, which must have Ukraine at the table and include a strong voice for Europe too. Third, we will help you secure the peace. We will continue to lead the coalition of the willing together with our allies. And when a ceasefire is finally in place, we will be ready to deploy a multinational force to strengthen Ukraine's security for the long term. To put it simply, Vladimir, I want you to know that we've got your back. You can count on me and you can count on us. You can count on the UK for as long as it takes. Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
Andy Burnham there. Now let's take a listen to what he also said to reporters on his visit to Portsmouth.
That was a big item of discussion today, the whole question of anti-ballistic missiles and the supply of them to Ukraine, particularly in terms of Ukraine protecting critical national infrastructure during the winters that can be very harsh in Ukraine. So we talked at length about that issue. We've taken away some things that we will now follow up with our partners. Overall, it was a very warm meeting. I thought I would get on well with him, and I did. We got on very well indeed, and this is going to be a close partnership. I intend to visit soon, and we will build this, and we will work through the different issues that President Zelensky has, many of which we've gone into today.
Just turning to domestic issues, you said that you want multi-party support for a social care settlement. The Tories have already today said that they won't support one that's based on higher taxes. Last time you tried to reform social care as Health Secretary, you planned a 10% charge on all property when someone died. Can you give any sense of how you're going to pay for it this time?
So it was only a week ago today that I stood outside Downing Street and said I wanted to build a different way of doing politics, more problem solving, less point scoring. And credit to the leaders of the two main parties, Kemi Badenoch and Ed Davey, both of whom have reached out over the weekend to say they're prepared to engage in talks. I think, it's one thing to say that and, another to actually then mean it and try and find common ground. But let's try. On this issue, no party is in a position where they've got the high ground. We've all failed on this issue over decades, and the pressure now on the National Health Service as a result of that failure is huge. So no one has got the moral high ground here. We've all got to work hard to try and find a solution. There are things that can be done in the shorter term, building towards a longer term solution, and that's what I hope the talks will get into. I would like to see if we could arrange talks, cross-party talks, to build that spirit of collaboration from the start. This issue requires a solution that is lasting, cross-party, and is one that the country can support. So the more we go forward on that basis, the better.
A little bit of déjà vu today. Last time Rachel Reeves considered changing stamp duty, the housing market kind of froze. And it's something that you've been in favour of in the past and there have been rumours about and stories about. Your team says scrapping stamp duty and council tax are not under active consideration, but also the tax is a matter for the budget. So that's just a tiny bit ambiguous and a set a few hairs running, so I just thought we could clear it up. Could you reassure people looking to buy right now that you won't change or scrap stamp duty in the next budget?
Yes, I can say that quite clearly. That won't be happening. And I don't know actually where some of the stories that have appeared over the last 24 hours have come from. It seems that somebody within, I don't know, 100 yards of me could say something and then all of a sudden it's my policy, or someone could pass me something and then I support everything within the document. It's just not the case that we are bringing forward plans on that scale at this moment in time. So I'm quite happy to give you that clarification. Obviously what we're trying to do though is to make taxation fairer. I removed VAT off electricity bills, or said we would do that, and that will come through later in the year. We are looking at how we take that little bit of pressure off people's shoulders, reduce the cost of living. These are priorities and we obviously will keep working towards them.
And final one, if I may. We are seeing just a little bit of a burn and bounce in the polls. But you do know that what goes up can come down, right?
Indeed. Yeah, of course. I mean, I wouldn't get carried away by any poll. I'm pleased to have kind of made a start where hopefully I've connected with people. And I am talking a lot about Britain believing again and getting its hope back, and I'm not going to apologise for that. I think we should have a bit more of a spring in our step. When we see what we are doing to support Ukraine and the collaboration that has just been taking place, we should be proud of our armed forces and what Britain is still doing. I think maybe we've, I don't know, lost a bit of that positivity in recent times, and I am on a mission to bring it back. I do believe there's so much more potential in this country. Talking today about what more we can do to build out the defence industry in this part of the world where some incredible innovation is taking place. Good growth in every postcode. I don't see why we can't do that. Support for high streets across the country. This is the agenda I'm bringing forward, and we will address some of those big issues this week. You know, we made some moves last week. Now we're not kind of doing anything other than facing in to the big challenges: youth unemployment, social care, housing, and these are things that I will address later this week. Okay.
Burnham there talking to reporters this afternoon. Joining me now in the studio here is GB News' Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood. Tom Harwood, he's saying there he won't be scrapping stamp duty at the budget.
He couldn't have been more clear. In fact, this is greater clarity than we heard from his official spokesman earlier today, which used, I thought, slightly weaselly language about how the Prime Minister isn't considering this, but then went on to say that financial decisions are decisions to be made by the Chancellor at the time of fiscal events. This was even clearer. The Prime Minister there being asked, will you be scrapping stamp duty at the next budget? No. Stamp duty will not change at the next budget. We've heard it there from the horse's mouth. It's absolutely clear why, even if Burnham wanted to do it at the next budget, he now can't. That would put the entire housing market on ice for the next 3 or 4 months. Who on earth would buy a house if you know that you might pay thousands of pounds in an extra tax now, but if you just put it off for a few months, then you don't pay that tax at all? It's very, very clear that these taxes can come by surprise, or indeed tax cuts can come by surprise or not at all. So perhaps not one for the next budget. Who knows about the budget after that?
But of course, many do say and say on the show that stamp duty is a chill movement in the housing market.
It is the worst tax on the books. You'll hear economists left and right say that.
Yeah. Disappointing now of the reporter not to ask about the small boats crisis. It means that this Prime Minister has had 7 days in power now and hasn't talked about nearly 1,000 people arriving here illegally.
It is astonishing, actually, that this is such a high salience issue for the general public, but for politicians, they can be so insulated from it. There was a curious theory doing the rounds in Labour circles over the last year or two, that one of the issues with the small boats crisis is that politicians made a big deal out of it, is that Rishi Sunak had a slogan, stop the boats, called press conferences, Keir Starmer, smash the gangs, islands of strangers, all the rest of it. They think, a certain type of Labour advisor thinks that actually if you just don't talk about the boats as an issue, it goes away. It's something that's whipped up by the media.
Yes.
And yet that's clearly not the case, because look what happens to public sentiment and concern when the numbers go down. One of the reasons why migration is not the top number one issue at the moment, indeed it's cost of living, and one of the reasons why there hasn't been so much concern about these small boat arrivals over the last couple of months, is those arrivals were down for a bit. There was a lull in the channel. Sadly, I don't think that the political calculus in Westminster has caught up to the reality in the Channel. Over the last week, we have suddenly seen the boats are back.
Yes.
They're back in earnest. Whatever might have happened to dampen those boats over the previous few months, we are now clearly back for bumper weeks, indeed bumper boats, the largest boats that we have ever seen, more than 150 migrants per boat.
Which could suggest the supply of small boats is being squeezed from the German factories where they're made, or the engines from China, so the bigger boats, more unstable but bigger. That could be the answer, but the numbers are coming across. I was just reflecting when Sajid Javid was the Home Secretary for the Tories in December 2018, 93 crossed over 3 days, and that was an emergency, and he recalled ships to the Channel to secure the southern border. I mean, where are we now?
Which of course,
200,000 have crossed since then. I mean, it's
which of course is a nonsense, because we know that we actively send out ships to the English Channel, not to deter boats, but to pick them up and then bring the migrants into Dover. Anyway. I mean, that is literally government policy playing out. It's extraordinary.
We wait to hear our PM talk about this big issue, which matters so much to our viewers and listeners. Thank you, Tom Harwood. Let's talk now about Andy Burnham's benefit crackdown. I'm joined now by the head of operations at the Autonomy Institute, Jack Kelham. Jack Kelham, thank you for joining us here. We are expecting some measures this week, aren't we, to deal with the million or so young people who are being paid not to work by the state.
Yes, I mean, look, the plans aren't particularly clear at the moment, but this is responding to the rise in so-called NEETs, so that's 18 to 24-year-olds not in education, employment or training, that's been picked up by many in the media and policy circles in recent years. We're talking about, I think, roughly 900,000 people at the moment. There's been lots of interest in the model that takes place in the Netherlands, where I think review under Alan Milburn has looked at that, and there's increased training and support for people to move into work, as long as sort of harsher conditionality. It's still quite early days to see what any plans might be, and I'd be but cautious about calling it a crackdown per se, because we don't know what's coming up. But yeah.
It doesn't seem a crackdown to me. It seems to be spending more money. For example, he said, didn't he, on the Leroy Kuenssberg interview and on the step of Downing Street last Monday, that he's going to tackle benefits by building more council homes, and that just stop council tenants renting from private landlords. That's his idea of cutting benefits.
Look, I think when we look at the big so-called benefits bill, we actually really do have to look at the much wider economy to make sense of it. Because, as you said, some of that bill is housing benefit, effectively paid to housing landlords to subsidise really, really high rents we have in the UK at the moment. A lot of it goes on pensions and the triple lock. And a lot of it goes on, frankly, the sort of wider employment situation and work situation we have in the UK too. Look, having really precarious, low-paid work, which we still do in many instances, is a big key driver that keeps people out of work, because actually they're not given the security that they could be given. So I think we do have to look at these wider issues if we want to actually bring that wider benefit bill down, which many people would agree with.
Wait and see how that plays out. Well, look, Jack Kellum, the head of operations at the Autonomy Institute, thank you for joining us today on GB News. OK, now it's just gone 4:30. Here's your latest news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Chris, thank you. Your headlines at 4:33. 3 women have been taken to hospital, 2 of them severely injured after a knife attack in Paris. The suspect has been arrested. 3 people have been killed and 4 others injured, including a 2-year-old child, after a shooting at a food festival in the US city of Seattle. The suspect is in police custody. Tourists are being warned to stay away from southwest France, where wildfires are just 7 miles from Bordeaux, and officials are considering a total evacuation of the city. Around 320,000 people across France and Spain have been forced to leave their homes. Comedian and conservationist Bill Oddie, who was best known for starring in The Goodies and presenting Springwatch, has died at the age of 85. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello again, very good afternoon to you. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Some blustery wet weather across northern parts through the next 24 hours or so. Further south it's looking dry with temperatures rising as well. That's because we have high pressure currently to the southwest of us, but that is going to extend its way further north and east, keeping things generally settled in the south. A different story further north. There's been a fair bit of cloud, a bit of rain around at the moment, and there's more of that to come through the end of the day, with more persistent rain arriving through this evening and overnight, initially across Northern Ireland, but that wet weather spilling its way in across parts of Scotland, where it could turn quite heavy for some, especially in the west. All the while, towards the south and southeast, it's staying dry, some clear skies overnight, with temperatures only dropping to lows of around 16, 17, possibly 18 Celsius in some places, so a relatively warm night indeed. A wet start to the day across many parts of Scotland. Quite blustery, quite windy, especially in northern areas as well. Some of that rain could be a bit heavy, a bit persistent, especially towards western parts. Across Northern Ireland, it's cloudy. There'll be outbreaks of rain, a bit more intermittent here compared to across Scotland, where it's going to be more persistent. And a bit of rain for northern and western parts of England and Wales as well. Further south and east, well, it's drier, it's brighter as well, with some decent sunshine. And that's sort of how it's going to stay through the bulk of tomorrow, really. A lot of the wet weather across Scotland will break up and start to clear away, but it will be still quite windy in the far north. Elsewhere, outbreaks of rain here and there, mostly light for northern and western parts. Further south and east, staying dry. A decent amount of sunshine, and with that then temperatures rising. We're looking at highs in the low 30s again around the London area. Even elsewhere in the south, it's going to feel very warm, if not hot. More outbreaks of rain to come across northern parts through tomorrow evening. Further south across central and southern areas, a dry picture to end the day. More fine weather to come through the end of the week across southern areas, with temperatures peaking in the mid-30s perhaps on Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Britain, for all of you who listen to GB News Radio.
Whether you're at home or on the go, you're making us Britain's news channel and Britain's radio station.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. There is a collision on the M5 southbound between junctions 15 and 16 in Almondsbury. The M25 clockwise at junction 17 in Rickmansworth is affected by a collision. In Scotland, the M8 eastbound between junctions 25A and 25 has lane restrictions causing queues. Across Wales, the M4 westbound from J24 Coldra to J26 Malpas is congested. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services are disrupted at Preston, and cross-country buses replace trains between Torquay and Paignton. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Okay, it's just gone 4:35. Welcome back. I'm Christopher Hope on GB News. Now, an Albanian drug dealer has dodged deportation because his daughter wets the bed. The judge said it'd be unduly harsh on the girl to deport him because of it. The Home Office has challenged the decision, and a fresh hearing has now been ordered, leaving his future in the UK unresolved. We can now speak with the solicitor, Marcus Johnston. Marcus, this kind of thing weakens support for the asylum system, doesn't it? When you can have an individual saying he can't be deported because his daughter, sadly, but his daughter wets the bed.
It is, Chris. It's quite a shocking indictment to think of the way the system is going in the UK. This is just one of many cases. You know, we've heard previously about the chicken nugget case, about other cases where somebody is suffering from needs to cook for their partner, therefore can't be deported. And now we have this one because his daughter wets the bed and suffers nightmares. It is such a strange situation that we find ourselves in, that foreign nationals can now use European Convention of Human Rights to, in effect, stop the deportation on quite strange and spurious reasons, I would think.
And the social worker warned the young girl needed a therapeutic intervention. It is extraordinary. I mean, he'd been caught by the National Crime Agency handing over more than £300,000 in Park Royal, West London. He's been jailed before. I mean, it just seems crazy that we can't deport people like this, and the reason is so spurious. I mean, is it... If you break it down, Marcus, without getting into detail, you may not know the full detail. Is it all about Article 8, right to a family life? Is that what's happening here? And can it be solved by leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, which both Reform and the Tories say they want to do?
Partly, Chris. I mean, the big problem is in relation to human rights, but also we have our own domestic legislation, as in this case, and we've seen it previously with Mr. Ahmed with the Immigration Act loophole allowing him to stay. In this one, we're actually looking at the Nationality, Immigration and Asylum Act, which allows an exception for people to stay if they serve under 4 years in prison. So we know in this with this chap's case, Mr. Coker's case, he served 3 years of his second offence, therefore under 4 years, and falls into the exception if he can show that he's got a parental responsibility, which he does have, and also it would be unduly harsh on the child. And therefore we're looking at, well, what reasons would it become unduly harsh? And she says, well, she's going to wet the bed and have nightmares. But what we are finding, Chris, is that the lawyers are really getting switched on to this in a big way. And it's not just a case of chicken nuggets or bedwetting or nightmares. It's all now transferring into mental ill health. And so we, as you alluded to a moment ago, quite correctly, the social worker refers to therapeutic interventions. In the chicken nugget case, that became complex behavioural issues, awaiting assessment for autism spectrum disorders. We had the other case with he needs to cook for his partner because she was suffering PTSD, anxiety and depression. So we're now finding that everything's moving into mental health reasons. And as with anything, I know with the case we deal with, many people suffer, unfortunately, from mental health problems. But it's now being used as a reason to circumvent our own law, loopholes in our law, using human rights law, to then allow serious criminals to stay in the UK.
Marcus, as a lawyer, as a solicitor, who do you blame for this? I mean, is it lawyers doing a good job and just using children here to keep their parents in the UK when they should be maybe deported? Or do you blame the law? Is the law wrong and can it be changed?
I think the law needs to be changed. I mean, some of these laws are going back quite a number of years now, long before we've seen the explosion of problems in society now with the foreign nationals committing crimes. There needs to be a complete revamp. These exceptions under our own laws that allow serious offenders to stay in the country for quite weird and wonderful reasons, it needs changing. And we could pass our own law to get rid of these exceptions. It just doesn't make any sense that we allow, and we specifically write into our own legislation, reasons to allow drug dealers and criminals that are harming society to stay in this country.
So Marcus, before you go, it's worth noting then that just leaving the European Convention on Human Rights won't necessarily stop this happening again. There needs to be some primary legislation passed by Parliament.
Well, it probably would do, but we'd need that, I think, to leave the ECHR anyway. But if human rights issues allowing people to stay, then the exceptions wouldn't allow them to stay. It's the exceptions that are in effect giving the right to say, oh, well, this now applies, human rights applies because of this exception. If we get rid of one or both, then people wouldn't have the right to stay, they'd be able to be deported, which they should do. I mean, anybody serving a sentence of 12 months or more is subject to automatic deportation. It's just that now they're all using these exceptions and the human rights excuses to stay and try and stay in the UK. 61,000 deportations have been blocked in the last decade, 61,000. There's 20,000 foreign offenders identified for deportation remaining in the UK at the moment. There's 10,000 in UK's prisons, foreign offenders in UK's prisons. And that's in addition to 10,000 who were deported last year. So we have a massive, massive problem going on within our society.
And it all weighs on us. It's all our cost, having these people who shouldn't be here, staying here. It all weighs on the cost of our taxpayer. I mean, it's nuts.
It is, Chris. I mean, I did try to look. I did try to find earlier today who the lawyers were and how this case was funded, the Albanian drug dealer, Mr. Coker. Those details are not available at the moment. I've not been able to find them. But it's a fair guess to assume that this is paid for by the taxpayer, as with many of these other cases. So it's the hard-working taxpayer in the UK who's paying for lawyers to bring these claims, to fight them for years, going through the system, to allow criminals to stay in the UK, often going on to commit further and further crimes. Makes no sense whatsoever to me.
OK, Marcus Johnson, a solicitor with expertise in the area. Thank you for joining us today on GB News. Thank you, sir. Coming up next, the D-Day beaches of Normandy have been declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. About time too. But first, here's the forecast of some weather in your top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Another heat wave is set to impact much of Europe, bringing intense sunshine. There's very little sign of any rain. Across parts of Iberia, temperatures could push back up into the high 30s, if not the low 40s degrees Celsius. The heat may be enough to produce some very hit or miss showers across parts of Italy, but not really any significant rainfall and not really sign of much rainfall to come. The sunshine is set to continue alongside the high temperatures.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
What do you think about where we're going to get our future athletes and our Olympians from when we're telling our children, oh, you can't go out and partake in sports today because it's a bit hot?
It's a bit hot. Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, you're absolutely right. And, you know, not only
are we cancelling sports days in some schools? And you said, have to. No, they don't have to. This is the choice that the schools are making, and the heads are making. So my granddaughter's school, I've just done the school run this morning. They're not cancelling their sports day. They're just being sensible. Why not move it to the morning? I've just dropped her off now. It's 17 degrees. So they're perfectly capable of running at 9 o'clock in the morning instead of 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There's lots of ways that they could think outside of the box and do this. I mean, Labour is just about to cut 22% from the sports budget as well.
GB News, the People's Channel. Dubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
Industrial action in the 70s, all of that is part of the culture of that great town, and it's something that reflects a lot about the rest of us.
Right, but the word culture does not...
It doesn't mean opera.
That's history.
Yeah.
That's the history of the town. How is this money spent? Whose money is it, right? I presume it's taxpayers' money, i.e. my money anyway, and if you pay tax, Susie, that will
I do pay a bit, Kelvin.
Okay.
Yeah. Not as much as you, I'm sure.
No, but how much do we spend on the City of Culture for Hull? Do you know?
Well, look, so these shortlisted towns, they will receive £60,000 each to develop their full bids. Apparently, it's about restoring pride in local areas. They want to deliver a decade of national renewal. They want to shine a light on local visions and voices, they say, from across the UK.
GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
So you go along to the car showroom and only like 10%, at most maybe 15%, pay cash. The rest buy on some form of financing. And you often buy, it's a bit like a mortgage, and it's like buying a mortgage from the estate agent, which we all know is a terribly bad idea. Yeah. But this is what people did. And the deal is, the scandal is, the guys in the showroom were acting as dealers and brokers, and they were in many cases inflating the interest rate that you paid so that they could get bigger commission. And they didn't declare that. So you basically ended up paying more for your car than you would otherwise have done if you'd gone into the open market and found yourself, a better deal.
How did that come to light?
Well, over many years. I mean, this has been going on since 2007.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. I'm Christopher Hope, sitting in for Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, the D-Day beaches of Normandy have been declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. About time too, in my opinion. The special status covers the 5 beaches used for the invasion: Omaha, Utah, Sword, Gold and Juno. They were the American names for those beaches, of course, where more than 150,000 troops came ashore in 1944. It became a defining moment in the Allies' campaign to defeat the Nazis. There's been an 18-year campaign for those beaches to be designated as World Heritage Sites, and now the UNESCO committee has said that they symbolically commemorate the immense human sacrifice that was made to overthrow an entrenched authoritarian occupation in Europe. Last month marked the 82 years since those D-Day landings. I'm joined now by the Vice President for the Taxi Charity for Military Veterans, Dick Godwin, whose father fought on the D-Day landings on Sword Beach. Dick Godwin, thank you for joining us today on GB News. This, of course, is obvious. It must happen.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chris. It's a wonderful concept by UNESCO, and it's been a long time coming. Personally, I think if it had been done at the 50th anniversary, that would have allowed a lot more of the actual men who took place in the landings to, recognise the fact that they at last had been recognised.
Yeah. I'm always troubled, Dick Goodwin, when you have these memorials put up decades and decades after the events, when many who would have been so pleased to see those commemorations aren't alive to see it.
Yeah, exactly. It's certainly better than the last idea that we heard for Sword Beach, which was going to be a theme park, which would have just completely ruined the whole area.
No.
And luckily that didn't get too far, but it was talked about for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I see a picture of Harry and Ken up on the screen at the moment, and it's lovely that they can recognise the area that they landed and that they fought on, and it's been recognised, on a world basis as opposed to, just something in France and that. When you think of the men that were lost during the Normandy campaign, which just ran into the thousands, it's just a wonderful concept now for the ones that are left.
Yeah, I was looking at this today, and I've been there. It's deeply moving. UNESCO protection comes from 1972. It's about protecting areas with cultural, natural, or mixed significance. Apparently, what held up this designation is the fact that it was a war, and therefore they didn't want to have war involved in this conversation about UNESCO. But clearly, the Nazis, taking sides against Nazis is what you should be doing in modern day Europe, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. The concept of UNESCO, it falls into a range of different subjects and areas. It's nice, obviously it's a cultural thing, but sadly, the culture has been allowed to survive in Normandy simply because all those men landed there on the 6th of June 1944 and in the weeks afterwards. A lot of people think obviously D-Day was just one day, but the actual Battle of Normandy went on until the end of August.
And for those who go there, I've been to Aramonge, for example, I think nearby. The Mulberry Harbours are still there, aren't they, when these temporary harbours set up to allow the landings to take place. What can you see if you go to Sword or Juneau or Omaha? What's there to see for tourists visiting this year?
Well, at Omaha, you've got the American Cemetery, Cours-sur-Mer.
Yep.
And just along from there, you've got Pointe du Hoc, which is made famous in the D-Day films, where the American Rangers had to land, scale the cliffs, and then get up to the batteries where I don't think they'd actually put the guns in. And then Sword Beach, you've got, it's still one expanse of open beach for quite a few miles. So you've got the landing areas. Sadly, you've got the cemeteries just inland at Hermerville and Deliverand, which were two of the big D-Day cemeteries, sadly. So.
Well, Dick Goodwin, thank you for all your support you do for veterans with your charity. And Dick Goodwin there, whose father fought on D-Day and landing on Sword Beach. Thank you for joining us today on GB News. Still to come, Andy Burnham has had time to meet President Zelensky today, but failed to break a silence on how he'll stop the boats. That's despite nearly 1,000 migrants arriving since he became Prime Minister. This is GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, very good afternoon to you. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Some blustery wet weather across northern parts through the next 24 hours or so. Further south it's looking dry with temperatures rising as well. That's because we have high pressure currently to the southwest of us, but that is going to extend its way further north and east, keeping things generally settled in the south. A different story further north. There's been a fair bit of cloud, a bit of rain around at the moment, and there's more of that to come through the end of the day, with more persistent rain arriving through this evening and overnight, initially across Northern Ireland, but that wet weather spilling its way in across parts of Scotland, where it could turn quite heavy for some, especially in the west. All the while, towards the south and southeast, it's staying dry, some clear skies overnight, with temperatures only dropping to lows of around 16, 17, possibly 18 Celsius in some places, so a relatively warm night indeed. A wet start to the day across many parts of Scotland. Quite blustery, quite windy, especially in northern areas as well. Some of that rain could be a bit heavy, a bit persistent, especially towards western parts. Across Northern Ireland, it's cloudy. There'll be outbreaks of rain, a bit more intermittent here compared to across Scotland, where it's going to be more persistent. And a bit of rain for northern and western parts of England and Wales as well. Further south and east, well, it's drier, it's brighter as well, with some decent sunshine. And that's sort of how it's going to stay through the bulk of tomorrow, really. A lot of the wet weather across Scotland Scotland will break up and start to clear away, but it will be still quite windy in the far north. Elsewhere, outbreaks of rain here and there, mostly light for northern and western parts, further south and east staying dry. A decent amount of sunshine, and with that then temperatures rising. We're looking at highs in the low 30s again around the London area. Even elsewhere in the south it's going to feel very warm, if not hot. More outbreaks of rain to come across northern parts through tomorrow evening, further south across central and southern areas. A dry picture to end the day. More fine weather to come through the end of the week across southern areas, with temperatures peaking in the mid-30s perhaps on Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A1M between junctions 3 and 4 is closed. The A11 is closed after the A134. The A5 is closed after the A453. The M23 northbound at junction 9 in Gatwick has a stranded vehicle causing slow traffic. North of the border, the M77 southbound between junctions 22 and 1 near Dumbreck has lane restrictions causing queues. Across Wales, the M4 westbound from J24 Coldra to J26 Malpas is congested. And on the trains, there is major disruption at Preston on Avanti West Coast and Northern services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We're celebrating a golden summer with a terrific two-part Great British giveaway. First, you could win a sensational £60,000 in tax-free cash. And that's not all, as you'll also win our most precious prize to date, a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Bowl. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, it's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show with me, Christopher Hope, only on GB News, broadcasting here till 6 p.m. tonight. Here's what's coming up on tonight's show. Andy Burnham has had time to meet with President Zelensky of Ukraine, but has failed to break his silence on how he'll stop the boats coming across from northern France. 1,000 migrants nearly crossing the channel under his watch, just 7 days. And that's despite our brand new PM looking at the same old problems that they could be sinking Labour on the beaches of Dover.
I wouldn't get carried away by any poll. I'm pleased to have kind of made a start where hopefully I've connected with people.
That's right, a big boost for Andy Burnham as Labour overtakes Reform UK for the first time in more than a year in a leading opinion poll. As Andy Burnham claims, it's because he connects with people. What do you think? Now, the PM has also suggested that homeowners in the south of England should pay a higher property taxes for fairness to support those in the north of England. But will Labour's Robin Hood plot to rob the south to pay for the north resurrect that age-old divide between north and south? Is Labour fanning the flames of a new class war? And a bombshell new report has found that diversity programmes are costing police forces tens of millions of pounds a year and contributing to two-tier justice. After the atrocities of Nottingham, Southport and the murder of Henry Novak, is it time to do a Trump and kick DEI out of our police forces for good? And more breaking news this afternoon. French police have detained a man in Paris after a knife attack on multiple people. 2 of the 3 women are severely wounded. We'll bring you the latest. Send your views and post your comments by going to gbnews.com/yoursay or scan the QR code on your screens right now. But now it's the time for these headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Chris, thank you and good afternoon. Your headlines at 5:02. The Prime Minister has said Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to the UK sends a very clear message in support of Ukraine. Andy Burnham said it was no accident the Ukrainian president was his first international visitor since entering number 10 in a move intended to highlight the government's continued support for Kyiv under his premiership. Speaking after his meeting with Zelensky, the Prime Minister also addressed issues closer to home and ruled out scrapping stamp duty at this year's budget.
That won't be happening. And, you know, I don't know actually where some of the stories that have appeared over the last 24 hours have come from. It seems that somebody, you know, within, I don't know, 100 yards of me can say something and then all of a sudden it's my policy, or someone can pass me something and then I support everything within the document. It's just not the case.
A pregnant woman was among 3 women who have been stabbed in a knife attack in Paris. The women have been taken to hospital. 2 are severely injured. It's reported the suspect attacked them in the street with 2 kitchen knives. French authorities say the man has now been detained by an off-duty police officer. 3 people have been killed and 4 others injured, including a 2-year-old child, after a shooting in the US city of Seattle. The city's mayor says the suspect, who opened fire at a food festival, has been taken into custody. Police are urging people to avoid the area. Tourists are being warned to stay away from southwest France, where severe wildfires are just 7 miles from Bordeaux. Officials are considering a total evacuation of the city. The number of people who've been forced to flee their homes across France and Spain has now risen to 320,000. Travel journalist Simon Calder has shared some advice to those booked to visit the affected areas.
Clearly, this is a desperate situation for the communities there and people putting their lives on their line to fight the fires and so on. But as you say, there are many people booked to travel to this beautiful area of France who are now thinking, what do I do? British Airways is saying if you're booked in or out of Bordeaux, you can change your flight. But otherwise, if you fixed up everything on your own, it's kind of a matter of talking to each of the people involved and hoping that you can get things moved. But there's no automatic entitlement, and your travel insurance won't necessarily be of any help.
Meanwhile, emergency services in England and Wales are bracing for further wildfires here as another heatwave is expected this week. Temperatures could reach up to 33 degrees. A yellow heat health alert has been issued from Tuesday morning to Friday across the East and South West Midlands and the south of England and Yorkshire. Former funeral director Robert Bush will be sentenced this week after admitting 67 offences that spanned more than a decade and affected hundreds of grieving families. GB News national reporter Sophie Reaper is outside the court.
Well, today here at Hull Crown Court, we've been hearing some victim impact statements from some of the loved ones who have been devastated by the actions of Robert Bush. One of those was Karen King, the daughter of Norman Bridger, whose body was recovered 324 days after his death. She said, "My lovely dad lay in a cardboard coffin for almost 11 months. It feels like he was just forgotten. How could someone be so cruel?" Robert Bush will be sentenced on Friday of this week, with many more victim impact statements still yet to come.
Comedian and conservationist Bill Oddie has died at the age of 85. Charities he supported, including the RSPCA, have paid tribute to his tireless commitment to British wildlife. He first found fame in the 1970s as a member of the comic trio The Goodies, but was best known for presenting wildlife programmes, including Spring Watch and Autumn Watch. Those are your GB News headlines. Now it's back to Chris.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Now, Andy Burnham has had time to meet President Zelensky today in Portsmouth, but he still has failed to break his silence on how he'll stop the boats. That's despite nearly 1,000 migrants crossing the Channel under his watch. Just 7 days, of course, since he became Prime Minister, and more are set to follow later this week. Instead, he's commented on the Burnham bounce, polling showing Labour has overtaken Reform UK for the first time in more than a year.
I wouldn't get carried away by any poll. I'm pleased to have kind of made a start where hopefully I've connected with people, and I am talking a lot about Britain believing again and getting its hope back, and I'm not going to apologise for that. I think we should have a bit more of a spring in our step when we see what we are doing to support Ukraine and the collaboration that has just been taking place.
Joining me now is GB News' Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood. Tom Harwood, I think it's pretty appalling that the PM was not asked about the small boats crisis by that reporter, but was asked about a polling bounce.
Yeah, I mean, Supine doesn't quite begin to cover it. When you see that the new Prime Minister is there, he's asked about a poll, the one poll out of the last 300 polls that puts Labour ahead, instead of a pressing issue that I think the country really does care about. However, there's always been a theory in Westminster amongst some people that would rather immigration weren't spoken about because they think it's not particularly polite, it makes them feel awkward. There's a theory that it's just the media that stokes this, that it's just the idea of salience in the media. So, for instance, when Rishi Sunak made those big press conferences about Stop the Boats or Keir Starmer about Smash the Gangs, there's a theory, particularly in some Labour circles, that this is what's caused quote-unquote division. And actually, if politicians just didn't say a single word about the small boats, no one would mind.
But not talking about it is exactly what annoys our viewers and listeners, doesn't it?
And you can tell that this theory is nonsense, because what happens when there are more small boat arrivals is the salience of the issue raises. There's nothing a Prime Minister can do about that. As one former Prime Minister once said, events, dear boy, events. Politicians are weathered by the political goings-on of the country. They cannot make the weather, although they wish they could.
200,000 people have crossed into our country like that on a boat. And it is totally outrageous, and it has to be talked about.
It, of course, has to be talked about, but more than that, it speaks to the uselessness that a lot of people genuinely feel of our political class, because they'll say one thing, and then policy will force government to do another. They'll say, don't cross by boat, and then they'll give freebies to those that do. It's like what's coming out of their mouth and what's going on with their actions are two completely different things. It speaks to a general uselessness at the core of government.
And yet, does it matter? Look at the poll. The More in Common poll today, you've been talking about all day on GB News. It shows a 6-point swing from Reform UK to Labour.
And this is huge, right? Because it is the first poll of more than 300 polls, I think, since April 2025, the first time that Labour is ahead of the Reform Party. For 300 polls, Reform was in first place, now no longer. Now, it is just one poll, but it does track with a trend of others that we're seeing. Andy Burnham will be buoyed by this, although I have to say, it does feel expected.
Yeah.
A lot of people were talking about the inevitable Burnham bounce, the fact that it's a new Prime Minister whose name is not Keir Starmer. That will inevitably bring some people back to the Labour fold.
And Nigel Farage told us he was expecting a short-term Burnham bounce. But let's see what Robert Jenrick makes of this. He's the party's Treasury spokesman. Robert Jenrick, thank you for joining us on GB News. Are you panicking?
Do I look panicked, Chris? No, absolutely not. Look, we all expected there to be some sort of bounce. The country is rejoicing that we don't have Keir Starmer anymore. You know, we said vote reform, get Starmer out, and we succeeded. We got rid of him, the worst Prime Minister in modern history. And now we've got somebody who's a little bit more human than him. So inevitably there was going to be a bit of a bounce, but I am convinced the public will very quickly see through Andy Burnham, and for many reasons, including the fact he's going to hike your taxes. He is going to increase taxes on working people. And we have been saying today, if he's capable of ruling out tax increases like stamp duty today, where he said he's not going to abolish it and create a new land tax, why won't he rule out all the other taxes that he's advocated in recent times that add up, by our calculation, to almost £3,500 for every family in the country? I can assure you he's not going to be popular when he increases people's taxes later in the year.
What do you think about this possible reform on council tax? It does seem strange and maybe wrong that you can pay twice council tax in northern parts of England compared to Westminster, where properties are 4 or 5 times more expensive.
Yeah, look, Reform is a party for working people. We're not for people on benefits, and neither are we for the richest people in the country. I think I always say Labour is for Benefit Street, the Tory party is for Belgravia. So, of course, we're focused on the 80% of people who are in the middle and interested in ways in which we can improve their lot. But Andy Burnham has ruled out any reform on that front. What he has not spoken about, which I'm much more focused on today, is this death tax that he has advocated for in the past, and we're going to hear more about that and his plans on adult social care on Wednesday. But this potentially has a massive impact on people up and down the country. This is the idea that instead of inheritance tax capturing 3 or 4% of families, or about 30,000 families every year, it could apply to everyone. Absolutely everyone in the land, from the richest to the poorest, and families having to pay 10 or 15% tax. That seems to me to be fundamentally unfair, an absolute grab, a raid on people's hard-earned savings, the nest egg that they thought they were going to be able to hand on to their children and their grandchildren. I tell you what, Reform is going to fight that every step of the way. We were the first party to say so, I think the only party to say so, and we're going to fight it to stop Andy Burnham from stealing your savings.
Well, what do you make, Robert Jenrick, as a former immigration minister in one of the last Tory governments, to these numbers crossing 881 across since Andy Burnham became Prime Minister? He's chosen not to talk about this anywhere publicly in the past 7 days. The number is mounting, and he's not talking about it.
Well, it's open borders, Andy. Look, he's never been interested in this issue. He's never been concerned about securing our borders. And he's pretending as if it doesn't exist. Oh. Well, it does exist. It's bad. It's the height of summer. We've got hundreds of people crossing every day at the moment. And they're not even coming on small boats anymore. That's not the right term. They're coming on big boats. Boats almost as large as the ones that we see crossing the Mediterranean. Boats that can contain 165 illegal immigrants on every one. And to make it worse, we've learnt 2 very disturbing things in the last week. Firstly, we saw that someone was murdered on a beach in France, and then allegedly the murderer got onto a small boat, came straight to the UK, waltzed into the UK, and as far as we're aware, the Home Office and the police don't have the foggiest idea where these people are. They could literally be living in a hotel or an HMO on your street right now. And then secondly, it's been revealed that Iran, a hostile state, is using small boats to smuggle in its agents into the UK. I say revealed, it's something that many of us have actually known about for a long time. The Home Office tried to shut me down when I talked about this a year or so ago. Nigel raised it in the House of Commons a few months ago and was heckled by Tory and Labour MPs.
Yeah.
This is a national security emergency.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister should be focused on our immediate national security. And to not even talk about it, I find astonishing.
Can I bring in my colleague, Tom Harwood, our Deputy Political Editor, Rob, who's got a question for you?
Yeah, Robert, thanks indeed. I was just looking at the numbers of this new poll, which does show, for the first time, Labour ahead in about a year and a half. Everyone's talking about Labour and reform. I haven't heard many people talk about the interesting gap between the Tories and reform in this poll. Just 2 points. Now, of course, Robert, you left the Conservative Party saying that it was dead, that it's no longer a national party, and that it's sort of in terminal decline. But it does seem like in the last few months, the Tory vote share has increased from its lows of 15, 16 up to 22. Reform in this poll is on 24. I mean, that's within the margin of error of each other. Were you premature in declaring your old party dead?
No. Well, I left the Tory party because I believed and still believe that it caused immense harm to this country. It hadn't changed, it won't change, and it never deserves to be in government ever again. And I don't think people have forgiven the Tory party. I think it is dead in most of the country. Of course, it may exist in some pockets of great affluence, you know, in Belgravia or in the poshest suburbs of London, pockets across the country like the sort of right of centre Lib Dems. But is it relevant in Nottinghamshire? No. Honestly, I go out canvassing every Friday and Saturday, don't meet anybody who's voting for the Tory party anymore. And it's a similar picture in the east of England, in the whole of the Midlands, in most of the north, in Wales. You know, the Conservative Party, I'm afraid, is now just a local pressure group in the immediate environs of London. What's very clear now is that there is a battle to be had between Andy Burnham and Nigel Farage, between Labour and Reform. If you want to ensure that there is a centre-right government after the next general election, you've got to rally behind Nigel.
But
and
Robert
Reform.
Jenrick,
you cannot take this for granted. It is going to be a big battle in the months leading up to the next general election. And so everyone who shares my concern for the state of this country has to get behind Nigel. It's very, very clear. Only one of two men will be our Prime Minister after the next general election. Andy Burnham or Nigel Farage. Take your pick. I think most GB News viewers would agree with me that it needs to be Nigel Farage, and so you've got to get behind Reform.
But Robert
now.
Jenrick, Tom Harwood is right. You are losing ground to the Tories too by that poll. Do you ever regret joining Reform UK and quitting the Tories?
No, I haven't regretted it for 1 minute. It was I always say, other than marrying my wife, it was the best decision of my life.
Okay.
The one regret I have is not doing it sooner, Chris. Look, the Tory party has not changed one bit. You still got, Priti Patel, who created the immigration system, sat around the shadow cabinet table. It's a farce. The idea that you would trust these people to secure our borders, to get our economy going again, to bring back pride into this country, no, absolutely not. It can only be Nigel, the strong leader that this country needs. And yeah, things are going to be tight. This is going to be a really tough battle in the months ahead. That's why you've got to get behind Reform.
If I can quickly ask you one final question. There's reports over the weekend of the police investigating payments to Reform UK. I don't want to go into the detail of that, but is it worrying that you have got these reports about the police investigating elements of Reform UK?
No, look, this all goes back a very long time, years, in fact. It's something that Reform has entirely refuted. We're very confident that donations that were made many years ago were done in accordance with the law. And it's just a massive distraction from what actually matters, which is how do we fix this country? not the tinkering around the edges that we're seeing from Andy Burnham, chucking a few sweeties here and there. How do we get a fundamentally different energy policy so we can bring down people's bills? How do we ensure that we raise people's living standards in this country? How do we secure our borders? How do we fix this country which feels so broken at the moment? And it's only reform that has a plan to do that.
OK. Robert Jenrick there, the finance spokesman for Reform UK. Thank you for joining us today on GB News, and thank you too to my colleague, of course, Tom Harwood. I'm joined now by the Research Associate at More in Common, Rhiannon McQuone. It's her research and the polling from More in Common which produced that surprise boost for Labour. Is that real? I'm looking at the comments from GB News viewers and listeners, Rhiannon. They say that where they are, they can't see any of this. They think that Reform UK is still surging.
So the first thing to say is that it's absolutely true that this is only one poll, and there are going to be a number of polls that come out in the coming days from lots of other pollsters, and we're going to kind of see if this is a trend. But we can also wait to see not just if this is a trend within this week's polling, but the real question is whether or not Andy Burnham and the Labour Party are able to kind of carry on this streak where we've clearly got them kind of at the top at the moment. But you're absolutely right. This is one poll, and the key question is whether or not they can maintain this lead over the coming weeks.
Graph on screen now. It looks like we are going back to three-party politics, but without the Lib Dems involved.
Yes, yeah. So what we've got for viewers is currently Labour on that kind of on a little bit of a spike from this week. And when we've spoken to lots of voters in focus groups, they are saying that Andy Burnham is making them feel good, hopeful, optimistic about the future. But some of them are also feeling worried, unsure, kind of a little bit cautious. So they are willing to give Andy Burnham this fresh start and kind of are feeling hopeful for the future, but they are also kind of tempering their expectations. And we've got about 1 in 4 Britons who believe that Burnham's government will deliver that most significant change in the last 40 years that he's promised. So we've got about 1 in 4 who say that he can, but that leaves 3 in 4.
Rhiannon, did you think then that we should be thinking, well, maybe this social media, this TikToking, this brat summer Prime Minister, is kind of working? I mean, by ignoring the kind of newspapers, by putting out press releases at 6 a.m. before they can't publish on the same day as the story they're doing, and by not talking to some broadcasters, by talking to the BBC with a half-an-hour pre-recorded interview and then doing lots of socials, is it working?
So what we seem to be finding about Burnham's communications strategy is that it is portraying this idea of kind of the politics of trying, the politics of giving it a go, and rather than what we saw from the previous government, where Keir Starmer said statements that didn't play particularly well with the public, like, I'm pulling the levers of government and nothing is happening. What we are seeing from the Burnham team's comms strategy is that they are saying, actually, you know what, we're trying this, we're giving this thing a go, we're going to try and take £45 off the average household bill, energy bill. We are doing something, and we're going to see if it makes a difference. And especially when they've taken kind of such a strong priority on the cost of living, which consistently tops out as the most important issue for voters. This week we've got it on around the most important issue for around 70% of voters. When it's that much of a kind of salient issue and so important to voters, really being seen to grasp that is clearly kind of playing quite well for Burnham at the moment.
Rhiannon, but before you go, is this a moment in polling? Because Reform UK have been ahead for so long, since April last year. I mean, it's 300, I think, plus polls. Is yours the first one, do you think, which will set the tone for the rest?
I think we're going to have to wait and see, aren't we? It's currently just one poll, but we're going to have to wait and see.
Well, Rhiannon McQuone, thank you for joining us there. You're the Research Associate, of course, at More in Common. Now, still to come, more breaking news this afternoon, and sad news it is. French police have detained a man in Paris after a knife attack on multiple people. 2 of the 3 women are severely wounded. We'll bring you the latest only on GB News, of course, Britain's #1 news channel.
At
GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show. It's not a bad brand. Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very easy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories.
And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back. I'm Christopher Hope, sitting in for Martin Daubney as the great man enjoys a well-earned break, only on GB News. Now, school holidays are well underway and British families are off on holiday, this time in the UK. Throughout the week, GB News will be visiting some of the biggest holiday hotspots around the UK. GB News' South of England reporter Isabel Fekalak has been spending the day with holidaymakers in Poole. Here's her report.
The sun is shining down here at Havens Rockley Park in Poole. You can see the stunning scenery behind me, the Jurassic coastline here in the UK. And lots of people now deciding to do staycations, trips within the UK as opposed to going abroad. Now that's for a number of reasons. Of course, flight prices are very high due to the conflict in the Middle East. Also, of course, we've had this beautiful weather, 3 heat waves, record-breaking temperatures this summer. Mediterranean weather, so why travel far when you have the holiday sun on your doorstep? Now 64% of Brits currently planning a UK trip. Today here at Havens Rockley Park there's 1,800 Haven holiday makers arriving. They've been enjoying the facilities, the activities and of course the sunshine. We've been chatting to them throughout the day. Have a listen to what they've said.
Since we've had our little girl, we haven't really been abroad yet, but since...
You've had a few abroad holidays, haven't you?
Yeah, you've had lots.
You like this sort of stuff as well, don't you? Local activities.
And have you been enjoying the beautiful weather this year? Yeah, it's been so lovely. Really, really nice.
Yeah, it's been very, very hot, hasn't it? But it's been nice. It means you get out and about a bit more.
And also, why go abroad when we have Mediterranean weather here?
Yeah, it's much easier, isn't it, travel-wise and that, rather than spending hours and hours going on a plane and everything. But yeah, when you've got it on your doorstep, it's
a lot nicer.
It's a lot easier, isn't it? Get away for the weekend.
So people definitely enjoying their time in the UK on these holidays. It's a great boost for UK tourism, great boost for the local economy, and we'll be going to lots of different holiday hotspots throughout the week here on GB News. We'll be chatting to Brits who will be out enjoying the 4th heat wave of the year, which I think is safe to say has definitely arrived here in Poole. So stick with us throughout the week as GB News goes on holiday.
Isabel Thakulak there, and I'll be holidaying in the UK too this year, and I can't wait. Now, French police have detained a man in Paris who has allegedly attacked 3 women with a knife. The man attacked those women with 2 kitchen knives. 2 of the women are in critical condition, with officials confirming that one has been stabbed in the lower back and the other in the abdomen. Here you can see footage from French news network BFM TV, where the suspect is running around with what looks like a large kitchen knife. In a later clip, he claims he's been sent by Allah prior to his arrest. Now, the victims are 19 years old, 24 years old and 36 years old. Geoffroy Boulois, the district mayor, said one of the women was pregnant. We will, of course, keep you updated with more information as we get it. OK, still to come. Fresh allegations of 2-tier policing have emerged after a new report has claimed that police forces spent over £600 million of your money on diversity schemes over the past 6 years, enough to employ 2,000 more frontline police officers. But first, here's your traffic and travel update. Don't forget, stay with us on digital and on radio.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. There is a collision on the M3 westbound at junction 4A in Farnborough. The M25 clockwise is slow following a collision between junctions 15 and 16 near Poyle. The A1 between junctions 3 and 4 is closed. The A11 is closed after the A134 in Thetford. In Scotland, the M90 northbound at junction 1 in Scotstoun has 2 lanes restricted, causing queues. Across Wales, the M4 westbound from J24 Coldra to J26 Malpas is congested. And on the trains, there is major disruption at Preston affecting Avanti West Coast and Lumo services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, your headlines at 5:32. Andy Burnham has pledged unwavering support for Kyiv, saying the UK is with Ukraine 100% as Volodymyr Zelensky visited the new Prime Minister, number 10, today. And on issues closer to home, Mr Burnham ruled out scrapping stamp duty after reports suggested he planned to get rid of the tax. 3 women have been taken to hospital. 2 of them are severely injured after a knife attack in Paris. The suspect has been arrested. Tourists are being warned to stay away from southwest France, where wildfires are just 7 miles from Bordeaux, and officials are considering a total evacuation of the city. Around 320,000 people across France and Spain have been forced to leave their homes. The King's principal private secretary, Sir Clive Alderton, is stepping down after 20 years of service to the royal household. Sir Clive has taken the decision to step down from his current role next year, coinciding with his 60th birthday in May. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello again, very good afternoon to you. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Some blustery wet weather across northern parts through the next 24 hours or so. Further south it's looking dry with temperatures rising as well. That's because we have high pressure currently to the southwest of us, but that is going to extend its way further north and east, keeping things generally settled in the south. A different story further north. There's been a fair bit of cloud, a bit of rain around at the moment, and there's more of that to come through the end of the day, with more persistent rain arriving through this evening and overnight, initially across Northern Ireland, but that wet weather spilling its way in across parts of Scotland, where it could turn quite heavy for some, especially in the west. All the while, towards the south and southeast, it's staying dry, some clear skies overnight, with temperatures only dropping to lows of around 16, 17, possibly 18 Celsius in some places, so a relatively warm night indeed. A wet start to the day across many parts of Scotland. Quite blustery, quite windy, especially in northern areas as well. Some of that rain could be a bit heavy, a bit persistent, especially towards western parts. Across Northern Ireland, it's cloudy. There'll be outbreaks of rain, a bit more intermittent here compared to across Scotland, where it's going to be more persistent. And a bit of rain for northern and western parts of England and Wales as well. Further south and east, well, it's drier, it's brighter as well, with some decent sunshine. And that's sort of how it's going to stay through the bulk of tomorrow, really. A lot of the wet weather across Scotland will break up and start to clear away, but it will be still quite windy in the far north. Elsewhere, outbreaks of rain here and there, mostly light for northern and western parts. Further south and east, staying dry. A decent amount of sunshine, and with that then temperatures rising. We're looking at highs in the low 30s again around the London area. Even elsewhere in the south, it's going to feel very warm, if not hot. More outbreaks of rain to come across northern parts through tomorrow evening. Further south across central and southern areas, a dry picture to end the day. More fine weather to come through the end of the week across southern areas, with temperatures peaking in the mid-30s perhaps on Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. I'm Christopher Hope, in for Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, a bombshell new report has found that diversity programmes are costing police forces tens of millions of our tax money every year, contributing to what critics call two-tier justice. The Right of Centre Policy Exchange said that the Nottingham stabbings, the Southport atrocity and the murder of Henry Novak were all examples where the state failed to properly deal with criminal behaviour due to concerns about being labelled racist. I'm joined now by the former Surrey Police and Crime Commissioner, Kevin Hurley. Kevin, how is this happening? And you're a former Police and Crime Commissioner. When you were in charge of Surrey Police, was this DEI work carrying on, and why didn't you stop it if it was?
Yeah, and I was also at one time the commander of all of West London in the Metropolitan Police and the Chief Superintendent in the City Police, so pretty much been right the way through it. This whole thing started after the Macpherson report and the murder of Stephen Lawrence, which is what now, more than 25, 30 years ago nearly. And a kind of industry has grown up of diversity, with all kinds of grifters getting involved in providing training and so on. And along with that, and some of the grifters who've got involved with Her Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary, as it then was, we've ended up with police forces employing lots of people on diversity and inclusion type activity. And it costs, on average, if you look at the figures, the salaries of 200 new police officers a year. Now, the key point about this, and I've been involved in policing for nearly 40 years, one way or another, I have never once ever dealt with someone who said, can I be dealt with by a black, Asian, Nepali, gay female police officer. Policing is about delivering a service for people in trouble. And when you're in trouble, you don't care who it is that comes, as long as they answer the phones, they turn up quickly, and they actually do something. So what we've ended up with as part of this industry, we've got the thing called the Police Race Action Plan that came from the now exceptionally woke College of Policing that sets their doctrine. And it's resulted in police officers being scared of their own shadows on the street and in terms of doing investigating. So there's no doubt that, for example, when all these grooming gangs were going on in the north of England and the rest of the country, people were too scared to really be nosy because the suspects were people mainly of Pakistani heritage. Police officers are too scared in great numbers to do stop and search on black youths in the streets of London,
and Kevin,
despite the fact it's mainly black youths dying.
And Kevin, you say that is because they're too worried about being seen to be racist by following their instinct. But is it required? Yeah. Is there a balance here? Frankly, I mean, if all the money is going to these DEI programmes, I mean, £630 million is a lot of money. A lot of money. Surely there's a balance between having some form of training in this area, so all suspects are treated the same way and racism doesn't come into the conversation. But this scale of training is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, is there a balance? I think there's a case for when you train the police officers and they come in, you say to them, do not prejudge any issue.
Yeah.
Be curious, trust no one, believe no one, and police without fear or favour, as it once always was. Sure, like any other organisation in the country, there are people with unsavoury attitudes to other groups, as there is in the health service, teaching, the military, private industry. But this is a colossal amount of money. 200 people would be enough to provide a big squad to go and meet every boat of illegal immigrants coming in the country and take them all into custody until they can be properly verified. This is a huge waste of money, but it's not only that. It's the fact that it influences the way the most junior level investigators, junior detectives, patrolling officers, senior police officers deal with incidents. And I can tell you, many times when I was either a senior police officer or police and crime commissioner, different special interest groups would come in and try and frighten me with the race card. Of course, when I was an elected politician, they were almost told to F off out of my office. You want something with me, start the conversation again. But I could afford to do that as a politician.
Yeah.
But, this is where we are. Young people, other people do not want to be called racist.
No.
It's the worst thing that you can be accused of in the police. Officers will not use force on some people from minorities and risk greater harm because they're scared of being told, why did you use a taser on a black person? You know, you've got all of that goes on in people's minds when they're on the street.
Yeah. Kevin, can I challenge you quickly on your record when you were the Surrey Police and Crime Commissioner? Well, this training, I assume, was going on when you were in charge, and did you try and stop it?
What I did, for example, when the Muslim Police Association reps came to see me, I said to them, just what exactly are you doing for the Surrey Council taxpayers? And then it was kind of, why aren't you helping us to recruit more people from the Muslim community? Yeah. And they kind of sit there on their seats and do nothing. But I tell you what I am on record on, it's all over the national press. I gave interviews back in 2012 saying diversity and diversity recruitment in policing is a complete red herring. What matters is a prompt response by people who know what they're doing, regardless of what their colour or gender is. It's like a plumber. If your toilet's blocked and you want someone to clear the mess, you don't care what colour the plumber is or what their gender is, you want your problem solved. Policing is, well, it's not being a plumber, it's the same principle. People don't need to love the police, but they do want the police to solve their problem, and they don't want the equivalent of this money being wasted or police officers being scared to death to do their jobs.
OK. Look, Kevin Hurley there, the former Surrey Police and Crime Commissioner. Thank you for joining us today on GB News. Thank you for joining us, sir.
A pleasure.
Now, a Home Office spokesman has said this: "We are committed to ensuring the police can perform their role without fear or favour and are categorical that they must treat everyone equally and without discrimination, regardless of their ethnicity." This government is delivering the biggest reforms to policing in over 200 years to put officers back on the beat. OK. Coming up next, Britain's most complete solar eclipse in 27 years should be watched with the help of this. A colander, experts have said. We'll explain exactly what that means and how to do it next. But first is a forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Another heat wave is set to impact much of Europe, bringing intense sunshine. There's very little sign of any rain. Across parts of Iberia, temperatures could push back up into the high 30s, if not the low 40s degrees Celsius. The heat may be enough to produce some very hit-or-miss showers across parts of Italy, but not really any significant rainfall and not really sign of much rainfall to come. The sunshine is set to continue alongside the high temperatures.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
There was a Ryanair flight from Thessaloniki in Greece, and a part of the plane hit the window and pulled it out. And so this man, a 61-year-old Serbian man, was sucked out of the window. And his wife, she says that she was desperately holding onto his legs to keep him inside the plane for 5 minutes. Wow. It was horrendous. Apparently the aircraft did eventually land normally and passengers were safe and a replacement airline was sent. He was taken to hospital with friction burns. It was a part of the propeller had come loose from the engine and it had hit the window, and that's what had taken the window out. So it wasn't as though it was thought to be loose in the first place. But can you imagine?
No.
I mean,
don't want to.
Unbelievable.
I'm
not a good flyer, I have to admit. This terrifies me.
GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Weight loss jabs could help children as young as 6 who are living with obesity. When did we start saying living with obesity? Can we not say obese children? Is that not politically correct? Well, delighted to be joined now by Sarah LeBrock, Director of All About Obesity. Sarah, I think a lot of people will feel slightly uneasy about children getting on these jabs, simply because we sort of expect, I don't know, diets to be managed by parents.
Yeah, I can totally understand why people would think that. But the point we're talking about, we're not talking about just overweight children here. We're talking about children living with obesity. And interestingly, you say, why do we say living with obesity? It's because they're living with a chronic condition.
GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
What does this kind of day mean to you, kind of coming and doing this every year?
Well, I feel that I'm doing this for my wife because she used to sell poppies properly, really, and I used to help her for 20-odd years. And I feel like I'm doing it for her, really. But it is nice to think that everybody appreciate what we did for being in the forces.
But tell me about your service, because you got sent out to the Far East, didn't you?
Yes. I just got engaged because I didn't think I was going to get called up, but then I did.
In your jacket here, you've got one medal for national service and one for that Hong Kong medal for that.
To be honest, I was 18 years old and I was very excited about going. It was an adventure to me.
The People's Channel.
Welcome back. I'm Christopher Hope in for Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, watch the skies on the 12th of August, the glorious 12th, because we're about to get Britain's biggest partial solar eclipse in nearly 3 decades. Up to 96% of the sun will be covered in parts of the UK, but experts are warning not to look up without proper protection. Believe it or not, experts are suggesting people use a kitchen colander to help you enjoy it safely. Now, joining me now is space and planetary scientist Andy Lound. Andy, thank you for joining us. In my hand, I have a colander. I have a piece of paper. Yes, there you have one too. So I'm going to run it so you can see me. So I think what you do is you shine, you indicate, you tell me what to do, and I'll do it for you.
You never look at the sun directly.
Yep,
you allow the light to go through the colander, and that'll actually act as a pinhole camera and project images of the sun onto the piece of paper, and then you can look at the piece of paper and see the eclipse take place. Simple as that. You can do it also by using binoculars or a telescope and projecting an image from them onto a piece of paper.
Yep.
That will work just as well. Or get a bucket of water, let it settle, and look in the bucket of water, and you'll see the image of the sun in the water, and then you can observe the eclipse that way. Alternatively, you can go online and get the special eclipse glasses, which you can actually get, and you can look for short periods of time with these, and you can look at the sun with these in full safety, and you can get these online.
And if you do buy glasses, look at the sun, you should make sure they are properly safe glasses, shouldn't you, obviously?
Yes, go to, there's various telescope supply shops and optical shops which actually sell the proper glasses themselves, yes.
Can I ask you, just for those who don't know, how is an eclipse formed? And is it a worry? These things happen, don't they, naturally, right?
Oh, yeah. It's just the moon passes between the Earth and the sun, and when it does that, it blocks out the sun, and it casts a shadow down onto the Earth. Total eclipse is where the shadow falls directly in your area, and that's going to be northern Spain. That's going to be in Spain and Portugal, so it's going to be quite exciting for them. So they'll be able to see that quite neatly, and then it just simply passes away. So it's a fairly simple event.
I'm trying to use a studio light here to form some kind of image, but what I'm getting is Mrs. Hope's colander on my piece of paper.
You will do, because it's so far away the sun is, that will actually get you a pinpoint image. So it's acting like a pinhole camera, really. And it's very true. It's a very, very good system for actually projecting onto something. And it's a very safe system, because most people can get a colander easily, and absolutely no way should anybody look at the sun directly through ordinary sunglasses or even your naked eye. It's extremely dangerous, so that's very important. Always project if you really can, but if you really know what you're doing, astronomers will have telescopes with special filtration on, so go to a special event.
Finally, if I may, Andy Land, are we the best place to watch this, or elsewhere? Where's the best place in the British Isles to watch, to see the reflection
anywhere in the British Isles we do it. Further south is probably going to be slightly better, but generally speaking, anywhere in the British Isles, you'll be able to see it quite clearly. And if you're staying up, watch the eclipse, because it's in the early evening, of course, as the sun is beginning to set. It was about 17 minutes past 6 it starts. Maximum is about 10 past 7, and then the whole thing is finished by about 5 past 6. But stay up, because the Perseid meteor shower begins in earnest as well that night.
Andy Loud, thank you for joining us, and I love your jacket, of course. You're the space and planetary scientist. Thank you for joining us on GB News. Well, it's 6 p.m. It's time for the queen of primetime, Jubes & Co. with Michelle Daubney. Jubes, what's on your show?
I've got to say, you took the words right out of my mouth there about his jacket. Anyone listening on the radio, we're not receiving the treat of Andy's jacket. I like that. A man that presents himself professionally. Shirt, suit, jacket, tie. Yes, that's what I want more of in this country. Anyway, so much that we need to talk about tonight. Madeleine Nawaz, Barry Gardner, and my good self. Lots to discuss. I'll see you in a second.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, very good afternoon to you. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Some blustery wet weather across northern parts through the next 24 hours or so. Further south it's looking dry with temperatures rising as well. That's because we have high pressure currently to the southwest of us, but that is going to extend its way further north and east, keeping things generally settled in the south. A different story further north. There's been a fair bit of cloud, a bit of rain around at the moment, and there's more of that to come through the end of the day, with more persistent rain arriving through this evening and overnight, initially across Northern Ireland, but that wet weather spilling its way in across parts of Scotland, where it could turn quite heavy for some, especially in the west. All the while, towards the south and southeast, it's staying dry, some clear skies overnight, with temperatures only dropping to lows of around 16, 17, possibly 18 Celsius in some places, so a relatively warm night indeed. A wet start to the day across many parts of Scotland. Quite blustery, quite windy, especially in northern areas as well. Some of that rain could be a bit heavy, a bit persistent, especially towards western parts. Across Northern Ireland, it's cloudy. There'll be outbreaks of rain, a bit more intermittent here compared to across Scotland, where it's going to be more persistent. And a bit of rain for northern and western parts of England and Wales as well. Further south and east, well, it's drier. It's brighter as well, with some decent sunshine. And that's sort of how it's going to stay through the bulk of tomorrow, really. A lot of the wet weather across Scotland will break up and start to clear away, but it will be still quite windy in the far north. Elsewhere, outbreaks of rain here and there, mostly light for northern and western parts. Further south and east, staying dry. A decent amount of sunshine, and with that then temperatures rising. We're looking at highs in the low 30s again around the London area. Even elsewhere in the south, it's going to feel very warm, if not hot. More outbreaks of rain to come across northern parts through tomorrow evening. Further south across central and southern areas, a dry picture to end the day. More fine weather to come through the end of the week across southern areas, with temperatures peaking in the mid-30s perhaps on Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. A collision is causing delays on the M25 clockwise between junctions 13 and 14 in Staines. The M4 westbound has lane closures between junctions 8 and 10 in Maidenhead. The M1 northbound between junctions 13 and 14 near Milton Keynes South is affected by lane closures due to roadworks. North of the border, the M74 northbound has 2 lanes restricted at junction 1 in Kingston, causing queues. Across Wales, the M4 westbound from J23 Rogier to J26 Malpas is congested with possible delays. And on the trains, there is major disruption at Preston on Avanti West Coast and Lumo services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's the Great British Giveaway Golden Summer Celebration. Your chance to win 2 fantastic prizes. There's an incredible 60,000